What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red Chill, your weekly one-stop shop for everything movies, TV, pop culture, and anything in between. I'm your host, Root by Root. With me, the Darth Vader to my Palpatine, my co-host, Shabzy. What's good, my man?
What's up, 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 what's up?
Welcome. This is Andor, recapped and reviewed, where we will recap and review every episode of Andor Season 1, scene by scene, and we will go into a deep dive with our personal thoughts and our opinions. A little bit of speculating and anything we can think of. Anyways, we are at episode 8, Narkina 5, released on October 26th. Written by Bo Willimon, where I think he's your man from Black Mirror, but I also saw he did a lot of House of Cards.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's the director that's Black Mirror, isn't it? Anyways, while we're
Toby
talking
Haynes,
about
yeah.
him,
Back to Toby Haynes.
well, exactly. Toby Haynes is back directing, back from episode 1 to 3. And I saw he's mainly done British TV, actually, besides the Black Mirror. He did a little bit of Utopia, which I thought was a pretty cool show, but I think it got canceled after one season. But which
And
funny,
even the sorry,
yeah,
go on.
funny enough, it's a British show that they remade for Amazon Prime in America. So actually, he went from doing Doctor Who and Sherlock to doing a remake of a British show. So yeah, but that's cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the next three, the director for the next 3 episodes has also only mostly done British TV. So
yeah, and I think I saw the 2-part finale is the same director that did last week's episode, so that should be interesting. Maybe
the guy who did Darren Brown.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the Darren Brown cameo. It has to happen.
it has to happen.
Anyways, before we go into the deep dive, let's give our personal thoughts and opinion, a little bit spoiler free. Shabs, what did you think of episode 8?
I would have to say this was maybe the most lackluster episode for me. It was still really, really good, on par with the quality of the show. But as far as all the episodes, it kind of reminded me of episode 2. But the thing with episode 2 was that, firstly, I think it was like 15 minutes. This is 15 minutes longer. And in episode 2, it was still episode 2. So you still were very new to the show and you were like giving it a chance to see where it's going to go and where it's going to. And it obviously paid off. But this one, it kind of just felt like, I don't know, it could have been like 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes shorter. And there was just a lot of stuff in there that I was just kind of bored by, to be honest. And I normally like all the talky stuff, as people call it, but yeah, I was just kind of bored by this. I feel like it was a little too depressing and a little too monotonous, and I think that was the point. But at the same time, it was that. So I didn't feel any. There was just 1 or 2 scenes where I was like, wow, okay, that's the show I wanted to see. Like, that's the show that I've been watching all this time. So yeah. So yeah, we'll give her ratings later.
That is really interesting because I actually still love this episode because of the new location and everything they did with it. Had me very excited because I'm sitting here speculating of what the next episode is going to be and what I hope is going to be. And after what we got with the action scene and the scene in the town and the finale of the first 3 episodes, and then the heist in episode 6, I'm very excited to see what happens next episode with everything they've set up so far. I agree that at the end there was an amazing scene that really, I don't know, really pulled me in quite a bit and had me thinking about a lot of things in terms of just Star Wars, the universe as a whole. And yeah, like I said, I get the depressing vibe, but yeah, I think it was a point. It was very dystopian. It reminded me of like dystopian futures they depicted in movies in the 40s, 50s and stuff like that. So yeah, overall, I still enjoyed it. I'm still very much interested in what's going on. It could have been shorter, maybe, but I think in the end,
It was 53 minutes long.
I actually think right now I can't think of anything that I would want cut. There's maybe things you could trim, but overall, I don't think there's any scene that I wasn't invested in because of one reason or another. But yeah, we'll get into all of that in the spoilers. Meantime, let's give
Yes.
it a rating, and then we'll see what's next. So, what do you think, Shabs?
I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go with 7.5.
All right, that's fair.
It's the first below 8 episode that which is ironic because it's episode 8. Actually, I just realized that.
See, I was hovering at an 8, but I will give it an 8.5 just because of the final scene and because of what it has me excited for. If it gives me the payoff that I'm hoping it has set up, it's totally an 8.5 because I get it again. It's a small little movie, and we needed this episode for the next one to work if they give us what I expect. But anyways, let's get into the spoiler section. Any overall thoughts before we get into the breakdown? Anything you want to point out?
No, I think everything's gonna be in spoiler full review.
All right, cool. Then let's get into it. Let's do our scene by scene breakdown. Chaps,
Let's
take it
do
away.
it. Oh, sorry. Recap. All right. Okay. All right. So we start off with. Should I start off with the recap? Can I just say a few things about just like some things that I liked or did not like?
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said if you have anything before the recap to share with everybody,
right.
let us know.
We're
in the spoiler section now, everyone.
Okay, yeah. So firstly, I just wanted to mention, just going back to the person who wrote it. Firstly, it's weird that this isn't, because all the first 6 episodes have been 3 and 3, and the writer director has continued that arc. This is the first one where it's like they changed the writer director for episode 7, and then they brought back a guy from the first one, and they got this new guy. And the funny thing about it is I looked him up, and he's nominated for an Oscar for a movie he did called Ides of March with Ryan Gosling. And I read the synopsis, and it's all about dirty politics. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes so much more sense, because I was thoroughly bored about a lot of the not about like just I don't mind it, but it was just too much like social commentary about politics and I was just, we'll get more into that when we're in the recap, and I just wanted to mention that.
But for me, what I liked about that was it was politics in Star Wars. They're showing us again new avenues in Star Wars that we haven't seen, and we haven't really seen an Imperial prison. And the last time we heard of a prison, it was like during the Republic era, like hundreds of years ago. So just seeing and it not being the stereotypical like riffing on the American prison or like a rundown place. It was very much, it felt in Star Wars because it was very unique to in its own style, where I was saying it gave that dystopian vibe, where they could have gone a lot of different ways. But like the fact that they went with the sterile route where literally the Imperials just step away and let everybody work for themselves. And we'll get into that as well. But I think my speculation was, what are they building? You know, it could be the Death Star.
Yeah.
Because you always bring up schedule. The schedule came up again in this episode. And this time, like the Death Star is always behind schedule. Maybe they're just laying the subliminal message that, probably, like, what else would they be building? Probably they're behind, and Palpatine put out a decree that, like, we need more people working on this thing, which would work together with why more people are getting imprisoned. And I think that overall it's all really cool. Again, for me, I really like just learning more about the ongoings in the universe.
So okay, so I'll get more into why I didn't like I liked all that part, but we'll get more into that, I guess. Let's start the recap first.
All right.
All right. So let's do it. So we start at where everyone was detained earlier, which was wait, once again. My bad, guys. Yeah. Okay. So we're somewhere, and he's being there's prisoners that were detained that are being transported out to other prisons.
I assume this is still Space Miami. This is a continuation of Miami. of
Oh,
the
right.
continuation of the last scene
Yeah,
where last time he got
yeah,
sentenced, and it's probably like right after he was being dragged away.
right. Okay, and so literally when it starts, I had my first issue because what's one of the things I've applauded about the show is the fact that they've been able to integrate like all different kinds of social commentary within their story without having the story like not at the story's expense. And the first shot here is all the detainees are all non-white, literally all of them. The only white person is like Parsi looking because they make sure that he has the cultural uh clothes and the hat. And I was just like
Well,
it made, I don't know, it was just way too on the nose, and I thought that maybe it would get better over time, but once they get onto Narkina 5, it's literally the same thing. All the guards that come out are all white. There's one Asian guard in the back.
but I think this
Yeah.
is actually like it's on purpose because the Empire is mainly white and a couple of brown guys. When one a couple of straight African Americans, but generally, when you think of the Empire, it's all white people, so they would probably discriminate. And at the very end, Saw Gerrera mentions four factions, and one of them is the Partesian Alliance, which we don't really know what it is. It was mentioned by Cassian before, but you would assume
Mm,
those are people like the KKK or something that trying to separate the everybody, and they would have probably some
right.
really strong opinions on who goes where. And if that is a thing in the rebellion, it would definitely be a thing in the empire. And again, I think it goes beyond them just trying to do social commentary for what's going on in our world. I think it's them trying to explain what is it like to live in a world where the empire is in control. Why is it so important for the rebellion and the Jedi to get rid of the empire? We've only mainly heard it in the main movies, but now
Mm,
we get to see that unless you're rich, you're going to be fucked. Like where there's no way out. The Empire is going to get you. Where even with Cass being on a planet like Space Miami, where everybody's partying and it's a good time, he still ends up in prison because if he has the choice. If he doesn't join the rebellion, he's going to be in prison, and they're using it to show how the rebellion is slowly building. Especially in prison, you slowly see there is already that happening. There's already ideology starting and people starting to rebel to the empire. And I think overall, I think it's gone beyond now of it being, yeah, just riffing on our life. It's more about let's go into what has been spoken about throughout Star Wars, but let's show what does it even mean. Like, why is
mm,
everybody so much against the Empire? Like, how are they controlling everybody? Why is life so terrible? Why is it that there's no escape wherever you go? You're going to get taken by the Empire, and you either are going to be with the rich folk and you have to put on a face, and it seems like even their people are not happy, or you're going to end up in prison as a poor person on like working for the empire as a cog in the machine where you're not even a human being anymore, where you're just a number,
mm,
you know. And
mm.
again, like for that, like I feel like that's why I didn't even notice that, to be honest. But
I
now
noticed that a lot during this whole
when you
episode.
mention it, like I feel like I've noticed these other themes going on, so I feel like that just goes right into what I was
Mm.
seeing this episode very much so.
My only issue was, firstly, what I wanted to also, let's just piggyback off of the fact that you mentioned we've only heard about the Empire and how bad it is and stuff like that. I noticed that one thing, especially from the last episode, where it's like stormtroopers throughout whatever we've watched, we've just known that they're bad guys because they're bad guys, and they've usually come off very goofy. And we're like, why are the rebellion so scared of these goofy guys in costumes, right? And now it's like we finally understand like why people are scared and hate them at the same time when you see them just being such like assholes to everyone. And you're like, oh, okay, now I understand why people have like this super hate and and a lot of them are just straight up scared of them, where it's not just like goofy guys in costumes just being security guards. So that's one thing I've noticed as well, that the shows were very done really well. But my only issue was not the fact that they have all this. Like all this, I actually like that and I've actually said that I've liked it throughout the episodes. My thing is like, this one episode felt like it was way too on the nose, which is very atypical to how the show has gone so far, where they've talked about all these things, but it's all like perfectly integrated into the story. But here it felt like they wanted to talk about the social commentary more than the story itself. So all the scenes were designed to show that, rather than have the story move along and then have all these things a part of their world. That
See,
was my main issue. A
for
lot of
me,
it felt like too on the nose.
I read all of that as them explaining us how the Empire works. This was a big episode for us to understand how the Empire works, and at the very end, them letting us know why the rebellion is building and where it's at this point. It gives it so much more importance. Where by the time you see Luthen and Saw talk to each other, you already have understood how terrible it is. Where even that, yeah, we'll get to the other things they've done where it is showing the oppression of the Empire throughout.
Right.
And then also, I think in the prison itself, wasn't it a lot of white guys?
No, but I think there was a lot of white guys, but I'm just like, it's more like you don't have to show it in these moments where it felt like, I don't know, it just felt like they were like trying to make it so obvious, where it's like, hey, look guys, these there's the illegal detainees, and they're all non-white, and you don't expect that on the Star Wars universe where there's aliens and all these other kind of species.
So
Where you would think that kind of stuff would not be that much of a relevance to, because they've shown so many other white people under oppression within, like, especially Morlana and all this stuff. But yeah.
So let me give you another argument. What is if it's because of Space Miami? What is if in Space Miami everybody's colored? Because how many white people have we seen there besides the Empire?
All right.
Even Cassian at the beginning was with a colored girl.
Right.
So that's why on Space Miami everybody's colored, but then once we get to the prison, it's much more mixed.
Okay, I'll buy that. That's fine.
You know?
And that actually, I was going to talk about this later, but that's actually one of the things I wanted to really, really talk about, was the fact that I wish this episode, we spent almost the whole time of Cass on Narkina 5, right? I wish that whole thing could have been half of the episode, and we could have spent, instead of him getting caught last episode, I wish last episode would have ended with him just being in Miami and just chilling, where you end on a high note, where after all this 6-7 episodes of like craziness and depressing and like a lot of crazy stuff, where he's come back and now there was a lot of emotional stuff when he's leaving Morlana, he's leaving Marva, he's leaving Bix. It was really, really emotional. And you're like, okay, now he's paid off all his debts, he's done all the heists, and he's in Miami just chilling. That would have been the perfect end to episode 7. And then you mentioned that, like, because that was the worst part for you for episode 7, just the way how jumbled up it was.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So imagine,
I think you're totally right with that one. That totally would have helped it. It would have given it a nice little kickoff to the beginning of this episode. And like I said, it would have left the other episode with you thinking everything's okay, and then you get the whiplash of the next episode starting, like how the other episode ended this time.
Yeah.
So I think you're totally right there.
So like, it was like, for me, it was like a lot of the stuff we saw with him in the prison, all those scenes could have literally, if you're going to have an episode be 53 minutes long, you could easily trim out some of the things that were really not needed. Those are the only things I felt like that were the writers really wanted to shove in their political writing, rather than be like, okay, this can be cut out, this, so that the pacing is much better. So I think like a lot of that stuff, if it was trimmed out, and we start off with Cass on Miami chilling, okay, and then we just see him a little bit get integrated. We get to see that the Miami is full of international different colored people. And then we think, oh, this is going to be him chilling in Miami. He's going to get into some kind of an adventure here. And he gets caught out of the blue. And then suddenly, because we're thinking like, oh, he's going up, this is good. And then there's a full drop. And now we see him in this crazy, monotonous, cold prison, and he has to do the same thing over and over again.
But
And that would be
let's
such a huge contrast from him just chilling in Miami getting laid.
let's get through the other scenes. I think we'll have some really
Right.
different reads on it.
Right. Okay. All right. So he gets sent to Narkina 5, and everybody you see
planet.
everybody's getting new planet.
Brand new planet.
And I
All
really
water.
like
Looks
that
very
they're
cool.
introducing planets slowly, not like a lot. Like they've introduced a bunch of planets now, but someone like me can also know what's going on, because they didn't all shove it all at once. And then we get to, it cuts right to, you said it's really cool looking planet, like grand, and it cuts right to Cyril in his cubicle and this like cold environment.
Basically his
And
own
he's
little
just-
prison, where we see him
Yeah,
later,
exactly.
even in a smaller room in another prison, where you can see
Yes.
that even when you're working for the Empire, it's just like being in prison.
Yeah. And yeah, that's perfect. And we see Jake Gyllenhaal come over with two guys, then they stop over at his thing, and then we get onto the ship that Cass is on, with other prisoners going on to Narkina 5.
That prison looked like the raft from Avengers. That's the
Yeah.
prison where the Avengers go in the water. It also looked a little bit like the fortress from the Inquisitors in Obi-Wan, which is like, I guess, I wonder if that was just like another water planet, or I guess the Empire maybe just likes water as a easy defense. Although that didn't work.
Yeah, it could be. It could
during
be
the heist.
I just called it. Space Alcatraz.
And for me, I wrote down the raft.
I have it in my notes as Space Alcatraz. And background music. I noted that it's gone back to very like old school Blade Runner, with all the, I don't know what the instruments are called, but
It's a synth bass that's playing.
synth.
And,
Yes, that's
and it made me think again of these old dystopian movies. They also were very heavily synth based.
Right.
There's actually, it kind of reminded me, it's there's George Lucas's first movie, THX 1138, literally like his first movie. It was
right.
actually about that, about like a prison where everybody wore white jumpsuits and they all had numbers.
Really?
And there's long white hallways. So maybe it was like an homage to that actually.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But also I think that like what you mean is like all the dystopian stuff. I think that could also be an influence of the 80s and the like, because a lot of those movies did come out around that time when synth music was popular with the neon stuff, or I guess that's more 90s, late 80s. But
Well,
I think that may have something to do with it.
It was even 70s and before with Kubrick and with like the
Logan's Run.
Exactly. I was thinking that's what I was trying to think of. It's totally like Logan's Run. It's like full on Logan's Run.
Yeah. Right. Now that I think of it, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So and then they have handcuffs on. And they're told to take off their shoes, and they have handcuffs on which get like sucked into the thing and they get locked. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like.
Yeah.
I generally like all the looks of Cassian throughout the episode. He looks so
Cassian
freaked out.
Yeah, Cassian looked like, we've seen him go through so much crazy shit and not blink even once. And here he was, I wrote that, where I was like, this is the first time we see him truly out of his element, where it's like, oh my God, he's actually scared.
I got a little bit of the feeling like it was giving him a flashback to being in prison before. It was it could have been a look of, holy shit, I'm back here. I know what this is like. I've done 3 years of this,
Right. Or maybe it was like, I think he just seemed like he's never seen a prison like this.
That could be it too.
Where he's just like, where am I? Like, I've been in wars, heists. Well, not wars. He lied about that. But I've seen wars as a cook. But I've like, I've gone through so much shit, and this seems like I'm like truly like, I don't think I would be able to make it out here. But yeah. So after that, we come back to my boy Cyril, and he's getting
You mentioned his mom called him Cyril. I think it was her weird
Cyril.
accent. It was her weird accent because everybody else still says Cyril.
Yeah. Because she also called rebels rabbles.
Rabble.
Rabbles. Rabbles. I love his mom so much. She's the best character. After him, like as a secondary character, I guess. Rebels, they're gonna get what they deserve. And it's like, oh, chill out, lady. It's like I totally understand why Cyril is the way he is. And I feel so bad for him. But yeah, and again, I felt bad for him because he's back in a room getting scolded by another woman. And it's just like, and the poor guy's like, but yeah, Dedra Miro. I kept calling her Mira.
That's why I was so confused. I was like, who the hell is Mira? You did that for 4 episodes.
I know. And yeah, so Miro is sort of
Dedra.
Dedra. I keep saying Miro. I've written her down as Miro. But yeah, so Miro asks Cyril questions, and one cool thing was like she starts with Mr. Karn, and then when he says something, she's like, "Listen up here, Cyril." It's like, oh my gosh, like it's something I mentioned as well, where I was like, he's no longer Cyril, he's Karn, and then he's back to being Cyril.
Yeah.
So I think the name choice was on purpose, where Karn sounds like a cool villain's name,
Yeah.
And then Cyril is like it's just like it's that dude from Archer, like the wimp.
But yeah, I was saying, I figured these two guys would meet each other eventually.
Yeah.
Dedra and Cyril, and I think they're slowly setting up that in the end they will need Cyril. Well, they already set it up by him saying he can tell Luthen by his voice, which I like that.
Yeah.
They played off the fact that Cassian came with a gun to the back of his head. So you didn't think about it. I didn't think about it then. But yeah, he would have never seen Luthen.
Oh, yeah.
Because Cassian told him to not turn around.
That he heard him.
So Luthen told Cass, we got to go. Leave him be. And Cyril was able to clock that, which is really a nice little dope detail where I don't know. I didn't even think about it while it was happening, but that they brought it back like this. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That's actually, I was trying to figure out where it was that he didn't see Luthen, but he heard his voice. But yeah, you're right. And it's really well set up if they did set it up for later on.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. Yeah.
I mean, a big part of this right now is who's Luthen and who's going to find out who he is. It's all about him. It more than Cass. He's just like at the moment, just caught up in it. I think right now with the split, I think the point was to show, had he joined the rebellion, joined Val, not run away and gone on his own, he probably would have joined the rebellion and he wouldn't have ended up in prison. That's why this is going to inspire him, because he realizes what his other options are.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so she sort of asks him, what did you file in the report? And she finds out that he actually there was a lot of information that was left out, and he was made to sign his report by
Blevin.
I don't know why I almost called him Dr. Blevin. I don't know why that popped in my head. But I'm like, wait, he's not a doctor. But that sounds so much. Yeah, Blevin made him sign the report, and he's never read the report, so he can't tell what information he left out. And one cool thing was in there, he says like, I was there just to protect, like I was following the murder of 2 officers. And she goes, oh, so this is about public safety. And that right there, I was like, oh, she's questioning his motives about whether this is personal or like whether it is about public safety or it's like a personal vendetta or like just a personal thing, like insecurity that he's trying to project. And that made me, you want to say
it's also her realizing that it's they have the same ideology, where she's just trying to stop this rebellion because it's bad for the Empire. And she's seeing that that's his main priority, is to keep the Empire safe.
I saw it more as like she was being sarcastic towards him, where it's like, oh, like, so it's about public safety, Cyril? And Cyril's like, no, Cyril's trying to be all upright and moral. And but yeah,
she pushes a bit further on it, doesn't she? Like, so,
yeah,
she asks him if like, so you're here for.
But she is sort of talking to him in a little bit of like a patronizing manner. Like, I don't know if you got that, where her tone is the same as the Major's tone was towards Dedra.
which I think is mainly them looking at him being the like her
Yeah,
being
he's a
superior to
junior.
him. No, yeah,
Right.
that like he's just like a data analyst. He's
Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah. Right.
So she feels above
Exactly.
him, and she's seeing him as a tool right now. And it's her
Mm.
playing with it of like, oh, you think you're more than a tool? But I
Yeah.
think it's also
Ex-
by the end of it, her slowly realizing that no, this guy is a
yeah.
huge asset.
Yeah. Huge ass is what did you say?
Huge asset.
I was like, wait, what?
He's a
I
huge
was like, did
ass.
you just slip that in?
He's
He's
got
a
a
huge
huge.
ass. I was like, yeah, he is. I was like, wait, why did you say that? This dude's a huge ass. I was like, yeah, I know. I think she knew that. But yeah. What it made me do was actually go back to questioning Dedra's motives, where her motives have been questioned by Blevin, whether she's just trying to climb up the corporate ladder. And what it made me do was like, obviously we've seen how the episode ends with her and Bix in like torture chambers sort of a thing, in like an interrogation room. And it made me think like, okay, she's an Imperial officer. Is she just super good at her job, and everyone else is just beneath her, and like, or does she have like an actual like hatred, or is she like actually evil from the inside, where she has like an actual disdain and disgust for like everyone who she finds like inferior to her?
She could be just brainwashed. Like she's
Mm.
been told all these ideologies and philosophies of the empire, make her think that all she's like there for is for the empire. If there's no empire,
Mm.
she has no purpose. So she has been
Right.
fed all these lies for years. And maybe that's why they're showing that Cyril and Dedra are what happens when you're getting brainwashed. Why are people helping
Mm.
Palpatine to take over the galaxy?
Right.
Is it because they're inherently bad people, or is it because they were brainwashed to just be a cog in the
Right.
machine?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my biggest thing, where it's like she's really good at her job, but now we see like a little bit of an
Well,
evil side to her, where we're not
is
sure actually, but
is she good at her job? Because they have
so far, yeah.
Cassian in custody for an entire month, and they're looking around for Cassian Andor, even though they already have Cassian Andor in their hands.
Oh yeah.
Is that really? I think they're
Oh no,
showing what, because
but
I
his
think,
name is
yeah, but
Keith.
like, how is it so easy to change your name? And they have a picture of him. I think they're trying to show why has it been so hard for the Empire in all the movies to find anybody? They're everywhere, but Jedis and so on are able to slip by. And I think they showed it also in a later scene when Cass is entering the prison, and all the guys are giving him different commands. One guy's saying, "Keep moving, go, go, go." The next guy is saying, "Stop, stop,
Right.
don't move further." And you see that they're very easily like put out a place where they're like, "Oh, someone didn't show up. Oh shit, that means someone's not here. What do we do? I don't know what to do until someone shows up." They're slowly trying to explain also, even though they're so organized, they're actually pretty bad at their job so far. I think, in my personal opinion, from what I've been seeing, all of them kind of sucked. From the cops
Right.
to Blevin to everybody, they're backstabbing each other. They have all these things going on. No one gives a shit that rebels are stealing shit, and except this one person, which is Dedra. Had she not brought it up, Luthen could have kept on going. Nobody was thinking about it until she brought it up. So much so that when she brings it up, people at first are questioning it. So I think overall, they're just showing that it's a machine that is controlling their people, but it's not working very well. You know, like again, they're plugging really well these little plot holes that you don't really think about so much. But when you think about the other movies, you can look back at this and be like, oh, you know, maybe that's why they never found Han for like so many years. Why they had to get a bounty hunter to go and find them because they couldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Although wait,
Yeah, that is
that
actually
that
true. I
was
never.
Jabba, but still, I mean, generally, even Luke and so on. Generally, it seems pretty hard to find people in Star Wars. It's a pretty big place, I guess. But at the same time,
Yeah.
if you
It
have
is a galaxy.
it is. But at the same time, if you're trying to be the Empire and you're trying to control the entire galaxy, you think you
Mm.
have some systems in place to realize like you're looking for this guy. He's like right in front of us, but
Right.
it's so much so that like he walks in and they just let him be. And he can be in there for
Yeah.
years and not see another Imperial officer because they specifically said they only come to take out the dead and bring in the new.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. They are plugging in a lot of things that normally you would think like, wait, how is this possible? How's that possible? And they've managed to fill in all those little details where now you don't have to really think about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And so then she sort of she leaves him and she tells her assistant Jake that let him read the report and then let him and then I'll come back for it. You were gonna say something?
I just like
Oh,
that
it
you
looked
still
like
call him
it.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, now I don't know what his name is, and I can't unsee him as Jake.
I mean, no one calls him by his name. I think that's why they chose
Yeah.
him. They're like, they'll remember you
Right.
by your face.
Exactly. Oh yeah, they made the Nightcrawler connection because he does look like Nightcrawler Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then we finally we see Narkina Five for the first time, where actually Cass sees it out the window, and we see it like the whole water thing, and it's like
Yeah.
a giant flush in the ocean, and I think you see like a bunch of them right close
Yeah.
by. Yeah.
It's like a bunch. That's
And
where I thought of the raft. Very cool
Mm.
looking planet. I like water planets like that.
right.
I wish there
Right.
like movies would explore them a bit more because how do they
Mm.
work? But yeah, very cool.
Mm. Maybe it's just like the what's it called? The geology is
No, yeah, totally. But I'm like, how do you even populate a planet like that? How do you start? How is there's like, I guess you live off fish, but like, what about like veggies and stuff like that? I don't know. I feel like they
Mm.
just to build structures in there. Again, in the game Destiny, there was a planet Titan that was all water, and
yeah.
again, it looked so
Right.
dope. But again, I just wish
Mm.
some property would explore it a bit more, explain it. Again, I'm a sucker for explanations.
Well, they might.
Maybe I doubt
You
it,
never know.
but maybe.
All right. So yeah, and then we get to Dedra. I confuse it. Dedra giving her speech to the colonel inside the Imperial Bureau about how she has the plan to now they want to go hunt Cassian so that they can because they believe he has information about Luthen, who she's calling Axis,
Because he's the
which is
axis
kind of
of
cool. Yeah.
everything.
Yes,
Very
because
cool.
of his centralized connection to acquiring special in an organized rebel effort to acquire specialized Imperial gear. I wrote that down.
I like the list that they gave. Where he's like, that's a very interesting shopping list, and
Yeah.
he paused and specifically pointed out Code Droid, where
Mm.
I don't think it's
Code
K2, but I think we're getting another droid. Like he made it seem like
Right.
Luthen already got a droid somewhere, and
Mm.
new character incoming. Maybe it's K2, but I don't think he was a Code Droid.
No, wait. So is that a type of droid? I thought it was like she
No.
was saying like the operation name is Code Droid.
No, he was listing the different devices that he stole, and the last thing he stole was a Code Droid.
Oh, I thought he was like obviously he was doing that, but then I thought Dedra called her entire thing the hunt for Cass Code Droid.
No,
I thought-
it was
I
the
thought-
general listing the things. It's
I thought
probably a
it's like how you have
droid.
code words for missions.
No, it's a droid that decrypts code.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm glad you cleared that up for me. Because this whole time I was thinking, I was like, ooh, she called it Code Droid. What is that up to? Like, what's the meaning of that? Like, why is that a code word? Maybe we're going to see. Obviously, I came to the same conclusion of like, obviously, we're going to see some kind of droid, but he's like, Code Droid. Oh, you want to go that far? Like,
I think it was. I'm hoping it's a
you-
character setup.
Right.
And also, I
Okay.
noticed
But yeah.
again. I saw a brown guy on that big table with everybody. Where again, I feel like nice to see more
Mm,
brown representation.
right. But no other women. They were very clear about that. I noticed. I like looked at it again, and I was like, oh, there's literally she's the only woman.
Again, I feel like these are
So
deliberate
yeah.
choices.
Oh, definitely, dude.
Uh,
Obviously, they can't. It wouldn't be by mistake. That
uh,
would be
it's
really,
too
really,
many
really.
guys.
Yeah. Too many dicks on the dance floor. You know that song from Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, and the major backs her up, which was nice to see. And they say that, oh, we want to drill into Morlana and find Cass, get the hunt going. So yeah, and then we finally land on Narkina 5, where everyone's being all the detainees they're transported down, and they make sure to show us that they're bare feet, and then the 3 guards come, and they've got like these heavy duty sneakers, which
Well,
seem like
boots.
boots for when you have a fracture.
They're very cool looking boots. At first, my
Yeah.
first thought was, is this going to be like a low gravity situation? Are they about to walk on the walls? They
Mm,
looked so giant.
mm.
Where
Yeah.
it seemed like you can probably just a normal rubber boot would have sufficed, but it might have been again. Maybe this was more on the nose if it was that, but they're trying to show the difference of the Imperials and power having fancy boots versus the prisoners bare
Mm.
feet representing the poor. But I think it was just a little bit of cool flair. They gave him really cool boots, and they
I,
pointed them out a couple of times, and you're just like, yo,
yeah.
where can I buy those?
They look to me okay, so I'm gonna ask you this. I kind of wish, like, obviously from from a comical standpoint, it looked funny to me, because I was like, yo, they got kicks, you know. And what are those Jordans? And I was like, what are those space, we got the Air Jordans, they got the space Jordans. And I was like, damn, homie, what's good with that, like. But it looks so out of place because they were like kind of colorful, and they're all wearing like
Yeah.
these like one colored uniform, which was like all black uniform, and then they're all like, it's 3 guards who are all white, which I didn't try to notice it, but it was right there. And they're all wearing black uniforms, but then they have like these orange you used to get those pumps. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
worn those shoes where
Yeah.
we used to have it for ankle support when you're playing basketball, where you pump air so it tightens to your ankle. and
I got
and
more
they
Uggs out
have
of
the
it.
loop. What
To
do you
me,
get?
to
What?
me, to me, they look like Uggs. They're so bulky.
Hmm. Okay. To me, they just seem like bigger version of those, and I just kept wondering, like, why wouldn't, like you said, if not rubber boots, but something like that, but something that's like more like just like black in color, like just big metallic looking boots, which would go well. It just looks so out of place that they had these colorful like kicks, literally, like where it's like they look like Space Jordans, and I'm like, what the hell?
Maybe they're like
The
just really
guys,
far from the Empire, and they're trying to have some cool little
yeah,
boots,
that's true.
little flair. They're like, we can't alter the uniform, but these
Right.
crazy boots we only use in this prison. They're not on the list of things you're not allowed to fuck with. You know, like Cyril was like pointed out that he was altering his shit. They were like, hey,
Yeah.
no one says anything about space boots. Let's get some funky ones.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
well, they get like orange for
these-
Halloween.
Yeah, they got orange bottoms, and then it's like light gray, and then
Mm.
orange loop, and
I
I
was
was like,
stuck
wow,
on
those
way
are
more
really
than
cool,
like
man. I want
Cass
some
has a
of
weird
those.
little toe. But yeah,
They
I
have
was
what?
I was much more stuck on the fact that Cass had like a weird little toe. It was like it was one
Oh,
of those where
I didn't notice that.
it's the type where like it doesn't really touch the ground and stuff because they showed it a couple of times and it's just like I'm thinking about his toe too much. Manias.
Oh my god, dude, you got a foot fetish for Cass?
No, quite the opposite.
Come on, just say it.
Mm.
You were hoping he would have sexy feet, but he has a weird toe, and now you're over it. You're turned off.
Yeah, I guess if you want to put it that way. It's like light pollution. It
Okay.
was my intention, but inevitably it happened.
Right. Okay. All right. That's fine. I have something to say about all this stuff later on, so so don't worry. I got your back on that.
You're frozen, by the
Right.
way.
But yeah. What? Sorry.
Your camera is frozen.
Oh no. Oh, wait, once again, sorry guys. Sorry podcasters.
But yeah, I thought otherwise it was a great setup to a location where as he goes through the entire like enrollment process of getting into the prison, you keep seeing Cass looking at everything in a way where I personally thought like maybe it's just what I would be doing, but it looked almost like he's learning everything he needs to know to break his way out. He learns about the
Yeah,
electrified floor. He knows he needs to get that button. He learns how to distract the guards to get them off their post. You know, he learns that
yeah.
how to communicate with the other floors. Everything
Hmm.
slowly, I think, is setting up a prison break, which is going to be so fucking
Right.
dope.
Yeah.
If that's the next episode, after we got like a proper heist, you're gonna get a proper prison break. I'm so down for it. That's what I was talking about earlier.
That was that
But
was
yeah,
my assumption too. That the next one is going to be a prison break, and it's going to
mm,
be pretty awesome.
like the only thing when they do the 1 month jump, I was a bit like, oh, that's okay. I guess he just went into the routine of it. But I'm hoping that they just didn't show that
Well,
he was working on his way to get out of there. You know.
I think it was the main thing about that was what I got was that in the beginning he's so like scared and like he's like, oh my god, I'm never gonna make it out of this, and I can't do this and I can't do that. And then within 30 days, you see how adaptable he is to all these kind of, even though
Mm.
because if he would have just come in and just been like, oh, I got this, I got that, we wouldn't have actually seen that he's actually super adaptable to like a completely new environment. But now we see that, oh, even if he's like super duper scared and he thinks in the beginning he feels just like how we would if we were in a situation like that, but he's so good at adapting in like harsh environments where 30 days later he's like on top of everything. And at the same time, like what you were saying was that from this moment he is anywhere, his eyes are just scrolling everywhere, and you're like,
He,
okay,
yeah.
he is straight up scheming to find any kind of, which reminded me as again of Escape from Alcatraz, where the dude's just looking for every tiny little detail that he can use to finally have his prison break moment,
It
and the
reminded
people that
me.
he needs to involve into it.
It reminded me of Gorn walking through the base and talking to the different stations and everybody at every spot where they're slowly setting up. These are
Mm,
the locations that are going to be important for the heist.
right.
They're taking their time to be like, these are all the important points that are going to have to come into
Yeah.
place to get out of here.
Yeah. I agree with that. And again, I liked all that stuff. My only problem was that I just wish that would have been just like half the episode. I think having spending the whole episode in just that one place, it just felt like more of the same. I think it could have been easily half and then half of Miami. I think that would
No.
have worked way better as a
Again,
structure.
I just loved every scene that we were doing, like spending over there. It was just every time I totally liked what was happening.
Hmm. Okay. All right. And we finally see that why they have those boots and why they have no weapons with them as guards. And they do the thing, and the floors are electric. And that was scary, dude. The way they all dropped and the way
Yeah.
they were like squeamish and screaming. And I was like, oh my God, that looks terrifying.
And that's just level
To
one.
be over there. Yeah, that's just level 1 of 3.
Yeah.
He does say that.
And
Yeah.
I like that
And
he
so, yeah.
says, if you do well, this will nothing be nothing but a distant memory. You know, he's like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
behave, and I never have to use that button on you again.
Yeah.
Where although
Yeah.
I kind of like to imply later on that Cass got shocked twice in the first day because he got put on the wrong table.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But yeah. So, and then we get back to Dedra coming back to meet the boy Cyril, and he's just like, hey, they left out all the important stuff from my report, what's up with that, and blah blah blah. And then she questions him. She's like, hey, you were talking about you were talking about an older man and who was like sexy, and he was wearing like a gray cloak. What was that about, Cyril? And he's like, no, I think he was wearing like a light blue cloak. And she's like, oh my god, this guy is useless. And she immediately leaves, and he goes, I could recognize from his voice. It's Cyril. Okay, I wanted to mention this, and I wanted to mention this before the start of episode 8. But now, the more I see him talk to somebody else, and I hope they're not setting him up to be a gay person. Not because I don't like. If he was gay, it would be fine. But it just seems like they
How,
might be setting up the cliched gay traits,
how did
where
you
it's like,
get
oh,
him
he might
being
be
gay from
flamboyant.
this?
It's just like his like I hope that's not the case. That's what I'm saying.
Like,
Not
what
because
gave
I
you
don't mind.
the thought? Like, in what way did they even set that up? I'm very curious how you.
No,
It's like
okay, so I was thinking about it from the point of view of like they suddenly mentioned the fact that, oh, he's into like tailoring his uniform, right? And everyone in his family like wants their men to be men and leaders, and I was like, I hope they're not using the super cliched traits that you would, especially because they've shown a gay couple which are just like, they have their own personalities, and the fact that they're gay is like different from who they are as actual people. Like, that's just their sexuality. But here it feels like they're making him sort of like uh I can't pinpoint the words that I'm trying to look for, but yeah, I just
I think
again, I won't care if he is or he isn't, but I hope these aren't the setups for that. Like, oh, see, we told you he was into tailoring because like gay people, and I'm like, dude, like straight men can like tailoring as well. That's my point. Straight men can be flamboyant as well, and straight men can be a little not as alpha in that sense, you know, if the way they speak and their mannerisms are not as boisterous. That's my point. It's not about making him gay. It's more about like straight people can also be like this. Like, not this type of personality isn't just for gay people, like gay
I,
guys. That was my point.
I think you're just sometimes forgetting that you're just watching a Star Wars show. You getting hung up so much on race and sexuality. If it's just a space
Well, no,
show.
because they keep they no that's not fair, because they keep bringing it up so much. That's my point.
No, but our point
Like,
was like,
the
for
fact that they
example,
brought up
With Val and Cinta, our whole point was that it was so subtle.
that that was my point, that the fact that they have been so subtle, they're now starting to seem like more becoming more on the nose than they have been in all these previous episodes. That's my point. Where it's like this episode seems on, because it's a separate writer as well, where it almost seems like a shift from how subtly planned every single thing was, and how they wanted to make sure that it is for adults, and we're going to introduce adult themes, and we're going to talk about social commentary, but it's going to be done in like a very scripted manner, where it's not at the expense of the story or the characters, but it's just part of who they are, and it's a part of the world that they inhabit. But now in this episode, the political commentary, and again, if this is a thing, I'm like, it just feels like
But what was it in the
very, very
scene
different to how.
when he's
I
talking
don't
to
know. It's just
Dedra?
the way
What
he talks.
was gay about it?
No, there's nothing gay about it. That's my
You're
point.
just saying
Like, I just
the way
that's
he talks is gay.
no. That's no. I'm saying that it's. I hope they don't say that because he talks in this. I can't think of the right word, but it's like it's the opposite of boisterous, right?
Flamboyant.
If you can.
But I don't know.
He's not
Anyways.
really. He's not like super flamboyant. It's like very low key. I'm just saying, like, I hope the writers don't take it there where these are the traits that they would use for a gay character, especially when they've introduced two gay characters who don't fit the cliche traits. That's my point. Where it's like a straight person can also be into these things.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
My
Right?
point is just they haven't really mentioned any of it. So they're probably maybe saying exactly what you said, that it could just be a straight person who's into that stuff, but you're reading into the other
That's my
angle.
point.
And that is like, yeah, is it them or is it you?
That's my point. I hope that's the case, and I hope they're not setting it up where we find out that, oh, Cyril's gay, and I'm like, come on, man, you can make him gay, but like, don't have him like, just don't have this be the setup. Just do it in a different manner, where you show where how you did it with Vel and Cinta. But okay, back to our original schedule. Yeah, and he's the Dedra and Cyril are talking about Cyril raising alarm 5-6 times about trying to find Cass, and she's like, hey, you try to raise an alarm and blah blah blah, you won't be talking to me. And he's like, I could be of help, this and that, and then she just leaves him, and he kind of smiles. and we're back to Narkina 5, and Cass is going through orientation, and we finally meet our boy, floor manager, Gollum. Right? What's his actual name?
Andy Serkis, our man.
Andy Serkis. There we go.
So I was so excited to see him. Another giant actor like that. And we actually have seen him before. He played Snoke. So it's interesting to have him back.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I
totally forgot that.
But at the same time, I almost think at this point, he doesn't get like that many big roles, but he's always such a standout where part of me was like, oh, are they just going to use him in Andor as the leader in this prison? I really hope it's a setup. There's other characters we get into that are huge setups. So I think I'm hoping this is just like this is his beginning, and we will see him evolve and grow more and more throughout the world of Star Wars, because I love that guy. The second he comes in, I'm like, let's go. Nobody told me he was here, but that's amazing. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, I realized
he's like a
we've never had like a giant giant actor as a leading man in Star Wars. I don't know why I started thinking about it here, but if you think about it, you never had like a big marquee name as the leading role. You had like Woody Harrelson as a support.
Or the new ones,
but even in the prequels, I would say, well,
Liam Neeson, Sam Jackson, all those guys.
I would say
Ewan McGregor.
Liam Neeson, was he as big? But at that point, the last thing he was known for was Schindler's List. But between Schindler's List but it was like 6-7 years later. What did he do in between? It was really,
I don't know.
I feel like he wasn't that much of a big selling name. It's not like you put Liam Neeson on the billboard and everybody will show up. It's not Taken Liam Neeson. It's Schindler's List Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
You know? And same with even Ewan McGregor at that point was still not.
He was more of a up and comer, I think.
I think they weren't as no name as Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford were when they started, or Finn and all these other actors. But I think if you look at Rogue One and Solo, the sequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and let's say to an extent the prequel trilogy, throughout, big actors have only been supports. And I think it's very interesting. It would be so interesting to see one project in Star Wars where it is a big name as the lead. I guess to an extent, Obi-Wan, now that Ewan McGregor has become who he is, it was a bit more like that. And you could really tell, like, whenever you're just following Ewan McGregor for like an entire series, added a lot, you know, like it really made a difference. But I would love to see like a movie, because that still had a little bit of a show vibe, even though it looked super expensive. I'd like to see a proper big story done in Star Wars with a big name, just to see what it's like.
With a new character.
Yeah.
Big lead in with a new character. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Who would you want to see the most?
I want Tom Cruise to do Mission Impossible in Star Wars. He's going to space. Now go to Star Wars.
That would be hilarious.
We'll have a scene of him. We haven't done much low gravity or something. I was going to say we have him in space doing the pose from Mission Impossible, and somebody's just like, "What are you doing? You don't need to do that here."
That would be hilarious, man. I would love to. Would you want him to be a Jedi or what? Like a bad guy or like a good
Make
guy?
him an alien
With makeup on?
Yeah,
like in Tropic Thunder.
Well, not like Tropic Thunder, but like in Star Wars, you put makeup on him.
Okay. No, but make him look like an alien, or like like a version of a Tom. So why would you want Tom Cruise then? It could be anybody. Wouldn't you want Tom Cruise for his face?
I'm not saying cover him completely from head to toe in latex, but like, you know, give him make him blue or something. Give him pointy ears. I don't know. Make him half wolf. That worked for Channing Tatum.
That it didn't work.
I was kidding.
That totally didn't work. Not for Channing Tatum, not for the Wachowski siblings, not for anyone. Yeah. I'm sad that Terry Gilliam had to show up in that trash.
But yeah, back to the scene though. I really like
Right.
the Andy Serkis's introduction where he talks about
Yeah.
how everything works. He's talking about the different floors. There's how many people, how many floors, how many people, how many tables, and I everything he's mentioning is just so interesting. Where he's like, you will not see the Imperials again. I'm in charge, and it's the classic. I'm about to get out in 200 days. You're not
Right.
about to fuck this up. And on top of that, I like how you mentioned that like it's a game. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's
He
like,
play.
yeah, play. But like implying that like it's a game between the floors and shit. And I was like,
Right.
that's cool because they're probably at a point where like they need any type of motivation. Like they basically say you're probably not going to see the freedom again right now. Nobody knows when they're getting out. So this is all you got, you know.
Did you get sweatshop vibes?
Oh, totally. I think that was implied.
Right.
That's what I was saying. I figured that it has to be the Death Star because look how gigantic it is. You would need more people. And it was always the question, like, how do the Imperials build all this technology?
Right.
And to show that it's them imprisoning people for no reason and having them work for them makes so much sense. Like, I was picturing giant factories. But
yes. Giant factories?
because we saw that in the prequels, we saw them build droids in that droid factory, right? So I figured they have factories everywhere, but for them to just be like, no, it's full on physical labor. I was like, all right, that's a choice. It's a cool choice.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's the same how they've answered the question where how are the rebels able to afford all the shit that they have if they're just broke ass suppressed people. Where it's like they've got so much crazy shit. They can't all like Han Solo can only smuggle so much, you know?
Yeah. No, I loved all of that, showing that it's from heists, it's from Mon Mothma doing her things. It's it's all these little nuggets.
Yeah, and they have set up like different kinds of options where it's like it's not just this one heist. It's like this one heist is a plan, then a backup plan is Mothma.
Now you're doing it.
You've got me confused now. She's a monster.
So did you have any notes for the introduction of the table?
Of the table of their assembly line?
Our favorite time of the entire series when they bring up new names.
Oh,
they did stick out to you.
Oh my god, dude, I've like stopped even caring about that in terms of like unless a name just like sticks out to me. There was Jemko, there was like 9 other people.
There were 3 names that stuck out.
Okay.
So the second I noticed it was after Olaf, but I still like I thought Olaf was just like a cool name. It's like Olaf but with a U. It's like Tim with 2 M's, but like for Olaf, Olaf, and I like that dude. I don't know why that actor that looked interesting, but then the next guy was called Ham, just Ham, Ham.
Was he called Ham? No.
Yeah,
right?
I had to put the subtitles on. It's literally just Ham.
Oh, you did it too.
I was like, what? This is just Ham?
without 2 M's?
Yeah, no, it's just straight up Ham. Okay.
Oh my god.
Like
so there's Zol, Jembok. Zol seems like there's Taga.
So there's a giant Easter egg in here though.
There's Ham.
Yeah. Straight up just Ham. His brother of baloney. No, cheese. But the giant Easter egg in here is one of them. His last name is Mulchi. Now I don't know if you remember. It's Mulchi.
Mulchi, I don't know.
All right. So the big thing about Mulchi is we've seen Mulchi.
Oh.
He was all over Rogue One from the beginning to end. He is one of the rebels that saves Jen Erso. And at the very end on Scarif, he dies trying to save another rebel, and he gives up his life to save another one. So he dies on Scarif with Andor by the end. So he is going to be a rebel. And Andor just met one of the people he's about to be fighting with, and he doesn't even know it yet. That's a huge, like, he's not like a big character, but you see him throughout. It's the same actor and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that. Because like I said, I've totally like Rogue One, I've forgotten all the characters. I don't even, when you mentioned Jyn Erso, I was trying to remember who that was, and I was like, oh, that's the lead girl.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an amazing little Easter egg because it's not just like, hey, look, here's this random character that was there in the movie. It's showing that the rebellion is starting, and it's also reminding Andor that, well, not Andor, but it's reminding us that had he not run and joined the rebellion, he wouldn't be here. But at the same time, it also shows that even in prison, there's a rebellion starting. It's everywhere.
Right. And they all ask him questions later on about what's going on the outside, and he tries to play coy like he doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah, that's Malchi, who's like, who goes up to him and is telling him that, like, don't believe anybody.
Is he the guy that Andy Serkis like puts him up against the wall? And
exactly.
Like, hey, stop asking questions. Oh, okay, all right. I didn't notice that. All right, that's a cool little. See, these are the details where you're like, wow, man, they put so much thought into their stuff.
Exactly.
The way they're trying to connect all the all the canon, not just like they're picking like one or two things. They're trying to connect like everything. It's like, yeah, that's really cool. But yeah. So that scene, he sort of just sees how everything works, and someone's about to get fried because they have like a person short and they weren't able to. It's basically like whoever is the last table gets fried, and you're like, oh my god.
In terms of productivity, it's a competition between the different floors, and then for the different tables. So that Andy Serkis, he was saying, is usually in the top 3 of all the 7 floors. And they're saying that the table that Cass was put on is at the moment the last table because they were a guy short. And then you find out pretty quickly that, because of that, they continued to be last because probably he couldn't learn all of that. I like how he's just standing there watching everybody and just,
Yeah, and he's just like, it's almost like he's having like PTSD or like Vietnam flashbacks, or
he's realizing like this is his life now.
Yeah, he's like, oh my god, like what's going on? This is what I'm gonna do. I was like on a fucking plane in the middle of a meteor shower like 4 days ago.
Right.
I was like getting laid in Miami. Oh yeah, that's pretty terrible. But so now we get to, first we were in one of the episodes we were at breakfast at Mons. Now we're at politics at Mons, and we're back to upscale party where Mon and Perrin are drinking something called squigs, which is obviously like the worm thing, right?
Space tequila.
Yeah.
Where I like
basically,
and I find it interesting that it's the worm specifically that gets you wasted, where he asks to take the extra worm to get extra wasted.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mothra declines it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we see Tay is back, and they're sort of you can see like Perrin's a little jealous of him, which is understandable, even though I don't like Perrin so much. But
they're definitely fucking Mothra and this guy.
How many of us have been in relationships where we've hated that best friend? Let's be honest, that childhood best friend.
The way they're talking, there's some they like each other.
It's always like that. It's always like that. And they always play it off like, come on, why are you so jealous? And like, why are you so possessive? It's like, dude, we can tell. Like, it's obvious. It's now, and I'm glad they're showing it. I want to show this scene to all my ex-girlfriends. Like, see, I was right. You were fucking, weren't you? Tell me right now.
Is that why you didn't want the tequila?
Yeah, that's why. You wanted me, yeah. Okay. But they're sort of, and then you get a nice little backstory where they've all actually, Perrin was part of their childhood. Where I thought it was just like, first it was implied that Tay and Mothma were childhood friends, and then Perrin was like the new guy or something like that. But now they're all like, Tay and Mothma are like teasing Perrin. Like, you remember him at 15, he was like an academy firebrand or something, and now look at him. I was like, dude, chill. Like, that's your other. You're gonna do my boy Perrin like that? You're making me sympathize with him. And but then obviously they break away from Perrin, and they start talking about the funds, and Perrin's like, hey, it's getting like kind of tough for me to do this, and they're just sort of discussing that. And then so Mothma's daughter shows up again. And did you notice anything, small little things?
No.
I noticed a lot. Okay. and I wrote a bunch about this. I don't know if you want me to talk about it now, but I noticed a lot of themes with because we talked about parenting in one of the episodes. So I started noticing a lot of comparisons of different kinds of kids that have been shown throughout the series. And should I just talk about it? It's kind of
I'm curious. I mean, you had an entire theory on Cyril being gay because he said a word a certain way. So I can't
hey,
wait how
that's not
many
true. Okay,
paragraphs you've
How
written
dare you.
about the entire scene.
Oh my god. Okay, can we just talk about the kids? Okay, like please. Okay, kids are important. They're our future, and they turn into guys. They either turn into guys like Cass or they turn into guys like Cyril. You know, so it's very important how they're parented. And the show has made it very obvious to show the differences, like how like okay, so there's the Canary kids, right, that were shown first,
With
where
no
there's no
parents.
parenting, no parents. So what are they? They're kids, but they're forced, they're emotionally and psychologically grown up. And then you contrast that with who? My boy Cyril, who's overbearing parent, too much parenting. And what happens? He becomes super closed off and he's more like an adult who's like stuck in a state of adolescence. He's like always like a child and he's thinking from like that naive morality all the time, you know? So that's one. Okay. Now the next is what was the next one? Yeah, okay. Now we have the upper class kids who's we see Mon Mothma's daughter and we have seen J-Hole's son. And both they've been shown to be a little bratty. They've been shown to be defiant.
I would say
And they've
J-Hole's
shown
son wasn't bratty.
Because they showed only one line with him where he's like, J-Hole's like, hey, so you're gonna wear that, and he goes, I'm not wearing that, and he's like, you're gonna wear what you're gonna wear, because otherwise you're gonna see the back of my hand, and he's like, okay, fine, I'll wear it, right?
Okay.
But you see him, he's rebellious, even to a guy like J-Hole.
Fine, I'll give you that.
And even Mothma's daughter is like that towards her, right? But here's the difference: J-Hole asserts his dominance and his superiority towards everyone around him, even to his spouse. And Mothma is the opposite of that, where she doesn't have control over her daughter. And both of them don't have. So he's able to get not support, but he's able to scare his spouse into doing what he wants them to do in terms of parenting. Where Mothma doesn't have a supportive spouse, and the daughter Leda, I think her name is, she leans more towards parent. And the daughter, and you see the difference where the child seems a little more like, obviously J-Hole implies this, that he's a little more like wimpy, where he's like, he's always ill and he's always got like slouch shoulders. And the moment he rebels, and then the moment J-Hole says something, he goes like, okay, I'll do it. And on the other hand, Leda is always like, no, I'm not doing that, and she gets her way. And the two times we've seen her at the party where she meets Tay, she's always come to the party and been like, mother, can I just be excused? And she always like gets out of there. So she gets her way through that, where J-Hole's son had to be a part of that, even though he was super ill. And J-Hole's like, yo, even if it kills you, we're doing this. So I noticed both those things. You see?
No,
that was worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right on those. I think that's, like we were saying, there is a theme of parenting that's being set up over here.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're saying, what is the outcome of different backgrounds? Where I think in the end, we will find out. We still don't know exactly what Cassian went through, but he had probably the most different upbringing in terms of going from parentless to adopted parent to going to prison and probably having authority be his parent for some time of his teenage years. So I totally agree.
We see him rebelling in his teenage years when he does walk through that alleyway where Clem is hung, which Marva always avoids. And also another quick small thing that I noticed in this was that Mothma both times, now this goes back to what you were saying, is that Mothma both times completely neglects her daughter right away, right? Her daughter comes to ask her to be excused, and she says, okay, fine, whatever, you know? And then she goes right back to talking to Tay about the funding. And she doesn't realize that one thing, I think they might bring this up, where Leda comes to Mothma and she's like, oh my God, are you drinking squigs? And she's like, oh no, I've lost my taste for it. And she goes, it's disgusting, which implies what? That she's tried drinking.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I thought she was implying that like you drinking it is disgusting, but Maybe.
Oh no. She says like they're disgusting or something like that. And Tay is like, oh, but that's the point. And she's like, okay, by the way, can I be excused? And she goes and she just leaves. And Mothma immediately, because all her attention is towards the rebellion. So this goes back to what our kind of debate, where you're saying that she's using Perrin and her daughter.
Exactly.
But my thing is that that's her family, but she's so focused on the rebellion that she's actually inadvertently completely neglecting her daughter, and her daughter's turning out to be like a bratty rebel of her own.
Oh yeah, totally. That could also be the thing. Yeah, we were saying that maybe she's using them as a front just because we mentioned that they're not there when we see her later in A New Hope. But yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe she lost them because she lost the sight of what was important, actually. It's kind of, it goes a little bit back to with Luthen, who's slowly losing parts of himself. And throughout, everybody is slowly losing parts of themselves, where we're saying, who is even the good guy? Because people are forgetting what is important in actual life because they're all thinking about the fight.
Right. And at the end of it, what really separates Luthen from someone like who's an Imperial, right? Because they're both using the same kind of tactics. They're both using the means, the ends justify the means morality. So yeah. And right when she leaves, she says, I should find Dad. So you can see that, and also we get to know some backstory, which is later, but I'll just mention it now. But about Perrin and Mon Mothma actually got married at the age of 16, and they knew each other a year they got married at the age of 15, and Mothma became senator at 16.
Well, that goes into Amidala. She was also very young. She was in her teens.
Right. No, but my point being that maybe she's not using Perrin as a decoy, as someone, maybe she became a rebel later on, and that they were just married way younger. And that's why now she's had a family, but she sort of got into the rebellion and started ignoring her family.
Yeah, probably.
Right? We'll see. But yeah. And so she sort of meets another senator, and then we get to that place in Narkina 5 where you see Cassian. He notices they're all in a line, they're moving somewhere, and he notices some guy doing sign language to someone outside, and he notices that there's like these kind of tubes where there's people outside as well, and like you said, he learns how to communicate maybe.
Yeah, and it's two things where he learns how to communicate with the other floors if he needs to break out, but also it shows that even in prison, as mentioned, like they're starting a rebellion. They're not okay with what's going on, and it's more than just breaking out. It's like they're just rebelling,
Right. Yeah. So, and then we have a small little scene that's the scene that I feel like now where Mothma is talking to other senators about how they need to be, they're feeling threatened and stuff like that. So, which was straight out of post 9/11 commentary, where you're giving up your liberties because you're threatened and for for more safety. And there's a small little debate between them, which I felt like didn't move the plot along at all. We already know that Mothma feels this way. We know that other senators feel that way. That's a small little scene where I felt like it could have been just removed from the whole show.
I again think it was the
just
same as...
I think it took time.
It's the same way they cut to Cyril, where they're cutting to Mothra being in her own prison, which is this political world. She's stuck in there and she's imprisoned in there, and it's showing that, everybody is in their own personal prison, and they're using the rebellion to break free. Where they also cut afterwards, like you're cutting from them drinking fancy drinks to him eating gruel and stuff like that,
That's pretty good. Okay, yeah, that's good. I didn't think of that.
That's why I was saying I get that it might have seemed a bit slower here and there, but I got something out of almost every scene in this episode. That's why I was trying to think of what would I cut, and I don't think I would cut any of this just because of how much it emphasizes the themes. It's really I like they're building the rebellion without them saying we're building a rebellion.
Right. And you see every single person in their own like you said, in their own prison where they're just trying to, no pun intended, but break free.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said no pun intended. I was
I
thinking
mean,
of
it's
the chainsaw.
exactly what they're doing. That's why next episode, if maybe the prison break is going to be a metaphor, everybody is going to start breaking out of their prison, and we're going to set up the end of them finally getting out of the place that they're stuck in, and everything is going to get set into motion, you know.
And it leads into the theme that we have later in the last scene about whether it's a rebellion or an anarchy. If everyone breaks out of their prisons, because we've seen that in a movie like, obviously, like I'm just going to mention Dark Knight Rises, where people break out of the prisons, and that's anarchy.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was just implied that right now there is no rebellion. It's all separate. It's all separate alliances that have a similar goal, but they're all going about it in different ways. And they're not they're not even communicating. It seems like the only way these people are communicating are through Saw and Luthen and people like them. You know, that's how separate they are. That like there is no that's why later on it's called a rebel alliance, because right now none of them are allied. That's why I think that final conversation is so interesting. What Saw did, like Forrest Whitaker in that one day, same in that one day of work. Forrest Whitaker put in fucking work. He just came to fucking
I know.
crush it.
He came prepared, dude.
And yes, he's so good always as Saw. It always makes me want to clear my throat, but it's so good.
Oh, I know. I was like, dude, stop. I'm just like, I don't want to feel like I have the flu or something. It's like, and then
separatists.
He's great, man.
He's so good.
That's the one scene where I was like, oh wow, look, it's two actors acting in a great show, in a scene, you know, where this is the kind of stuff. That's the I guess we'll just talk about it, where why I felt like this episode was more of a drag was not because of the scenes, but more so just like once I saw that last scene, it reminded me of the episodes that had come prior, where it was like, even when people were talking and it was slow, they still had an energy to them. There was these characters with like vigor, and there was like intrigue that was being developed. In this, it just kind of felt like, you know, like a little toned down and a little muted, where it felt like it's becoming now more of about the plot, which is fine, but the characters were becoming more and more muted. And the last scene was like, it was the perfect mixture of plot and characters and great acting and great writing, and all of that being put perfectly together to like make us like feel emotions and like, and just have like some kind of a visceral reaction to and that's what it is. Like all the previous episodes where scenes were like that, that's how they felt. And these scenes just kind of felt like just a little muted compared to everything else.
Again, for me personally, it was the metaphors they're setting, where everything that came before the scene with the two speaking at the end made it so much more impactful when you finally find out what are people even doing right now, and you find out that we're still so far away from what the actual Rebel Alliance is, which is so cool to see.
Yeah. And so right after that, we get into the orientation for Cass into their bunks, or their quarters or whatever, which are really, really, those felt like Black Mirror, like straight out of Black Mirror, like the design of it and everything, where it was like okay, that's I think they've had prison moments like that in Black Mirror, or very similar to that.
And the gruel comes up again, something that you consume that gives you everything you need. The second time that Cass has to consume something like this.
Yeah, and they all talk about you learn to enjoy it or something like that. Where I was like thinking Cass, it's like, oh my god, he's back to drinking like that brown milk that he hates. You know? Yeah. I was kind of surprised that they have a shaver in there.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't that be kind of dangerous to give to?
I mean,
to prisoners.
It seems pretty peaceful in there. I don't think they really care who lives and dies.
Peaceful.
Yeah, but I don't think the Imperials care if they kill each other.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, but like, all right, yeah, because they have the floor, so I guess the guards aren't. Or I guess this also plays into the theme of what Cass is always saying, that the guards and the Imperial never wishes to learn or to improve. They already think that they have it that they're so superior and they have so
Yep.
much more that they don't even need to care that much. That's why it's so easy to steal. So maybe that's why it might be easier to break out,
Yeah.
because the Imperial probably thinks this is like an unbreakable prison, so they're a lot less aggressive about. Well, I guess they're aggressive, but yeah. And yeah, so that's when everyone starts asking him, "Hey, what's going on? We heard that there was like an Aldani thing," and he's like, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And they're like, "Come on, man, you gotta know what's going on." And our boy Andy Serkis is like, just tell the guy, "Hey, man, stop it! I said enough." And he sort of reprimands Cass, and oh yeah, he says, "You don't walk in your sleep, do you?"
Yeah,
And
I
he's like,
I
"You'll
like
find
that. It was very
out."
genuine. Where he's
I
just
like
like,
that. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like you
You'll
don't,
find
right?
out.
You know,
Right.
he was very concerning there. That's why. So Andy Serkis didn't carry the prison for you. He wasn't a big enough actor.
No, again, what I said was like, I loved all those scenes. I just think for the entire episode, it could have been condensed easily, and the Miami thing could have been expanded a little
Yeah,
more,
okay.
and that would have made it a way more interesting even, and it would have had an arc of the episode where it starts off upbeat, he's on a high finally after all these episodes, he's on Miami, he's getting
Yep.
laid, and we as the audience think, okay, finally we're going to get a breather episode of just some lightheartedness, right? And then it reaches this top and he's just going out to get some greeny greens, and then suddenly he gets caught and he's in this hellhole where it's like a drop, and you're like, oh my god. And then I think all of those things that they introduced in this could have been condensed a little more, where time could have been spent a little less with the guards walking, right? That, like, all those things could have been reduced tiny bit. And if you take some of the like even Mon Mothma scene, everything, all the dialogue they have, all of that could have been reduced just a tiny bit so that the pacing is a little better. That's the only thing I felt. I liked everything, and obviously I think it felt a little too on the nose. That was my other problem. But in terms of like everything we got, I'm glad we got it, and everything looked amazing and felt amazing. I just think it could have been structured a little differently, where it would have been more on point with all the episodes we've gotten before. That was my thing. But yeah, I was glad. Andy Serkis, for me, like in some of the episodes where he felt like Stellan Skarsgård in episode 2 carried that episode.
Yeah,
So
and
Andy Serkis was, for me, was like that in this one. And yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention was that they mentioned that there's like a flashing lights, white lights underneath the bunks, and you have 7 seconds, and then the lights turn red. And I was like, oh my god, floor is lava.
I was thinking more 7
get on there.
seconds is very, very short.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so now we get back to politics at Mons, and this was funny where this is the only time where we get like a little backstory where we mentioned about they got married at 15 and she became senator at 16. The couple that they're talking to, the man looked very similar to Forrest Whitaker, like his hair and the way they did him, like from far. And I actually thought, I was like, is that Forrest Whitaker? Because I didn't know he was going to be in the show, right? Or even in the scene at the end. So I thought that was, maybe it was like a little like foreshadowing. I honestly felt that, where obviously I know it wasn't him, but like they show him from far, and it looked very similar to that, where his hair and everything was like kind of grayish and like kind of bushy. Yeah. But yeah, so we just got a nice little backstory, and this was nice. And they're talking about the view and everything, and like you said, she's smiling, talking about all that, and when she turns and she leaves, she's facing the camera, her smile drops immediately. So it goes back to your theme of like, she's like stuck in there, where she has to put on a face all the time and pretend. And yeah, and then we get to Cass back in his cell. He's just like just contemplating his life. And then we see 30 shifts later, and he's sort of gotten acclimated to the whole thing and sort of acquainted, and he's sucking out of that thing. I don't know what that is.
I want to know how the plate works. I think he explained that that's the gruel that he is eating, no? Well, it's part of it.
So
it's
that's
like,
what I
it's
thought.
like it's gruel, and the other one is water. It's just whatever you live off, the liquids and the fluid,
right.
the food. But yeah, I was more concerned
could be like
about
some kind of milk.
How does the plate get cleaned? He just kind of puts it back. Is there like a water system or something? I don't know. But I like this whole
It could be.
I like the little detail of like, yeah, the plate is just there on the wall. Very cool.
Because the guy who's introducing him to all this does mention that there is a spoon and a fork there as well.
Yep.
So yeah, so we see him. He puts that plate away, and sorry, once again, he puts the plate and he sucks out of that tube, which is probably like it's like glucose. Maybe it gives him all the nutrients, right?
Maybe.
Okay, and then they walk into one of my favorite scenes, and I never thought I'd say this ever. I never thought I would say this phrase, but I totally love the prison shower. It was amazing.
Because it's a bunch of naked guys close together?
No, okay, I knew you were going to say that.
No, but
and I knew that.
what stuck out to me was that their shower is just some spray gas they put on, while we saw Cass in Miami have an actual shower with water, which I thought was an interesting thing to show.
For me, it was very interesting because of the amount of time it took and the little amount of effort it took to actually clean yourself.
I mean, it looked more like they're just disinfecting them. But I like the smile on Circus's face as he's just like, yeah, I'm clean again.
I'm clean. That's my point, where it's like people who know me in my real life, in my personal life, know that my showers are super long and they're super tedious for me, and it's the most exhausting part of my life. And when I watched this, I was like, you know what? I wouldn't mind being in a room full of naked dudes if this is all I had to do to clean myself. Where you just stand, at least there's no soap involved. Okay, you're just standing there. The only problem was none of the guys were like that handsome. Cass was handsome enough, and Andy Serkis is kind of handsome. But other than that, it was like the best thing for me, where I was like, I wish I had a shower like this and I could just do this every day.
Because I saw they have real showers. For me, the thought was that like that doesn't look very clean. I feel like you're not gonna get everything. How do you get into all the nooks and crannies? I feel like this is very surface level. I'm sure everybody has a good, nice musk going on as they're living over there. It's one of those things where you just don't smell it after you're there for a month, you know. But I don't know. It didn't look very like they were clean, like getting clean from that. I don't know.
I think they got pretty clean.
I don't know.
Because they have to do physical labor, dude. So imagine how much body sweat there were. And the guards don't never make a point of like them smelling bad or anything. The guards would smell it too, right?
Well, there was a theme of the Aldani smelling, but I think it's more about that place looks so clean though. Like that looks like the AC is cranked up to the max in there. Yeah. I want to know, how do they keep that place clean? Everything is white floors, white walls. How not a single stain
with the shower?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
They got the special steam. And one thing that stood out to me in that was like, as much as I loved the shower and I wish that I could do that, the one thing that stood out to me was Andy Serkis's hair was super coiffed the whole time. It looked like he had either gel or like oil, and it was like perfectly combed all throughout. Even when he was in the assembly line, he woke up and he just got into the shower and his hair's fully coiffed. The steam comes off and he just walks in and it's perfectly coiffed.
Because it's not cleaning. It's not cleaning the product out of his hair. That's how they're showing you that this is not cleaning anybody.
Then, dude, that would like make his scalp itch so bad, where every time he's on the assembly line, he would be scratching his head like crazy. That's the thing where I'm like,
at this point, it's a helmet, bro. It's not hair anymore. It's become one solid piece on his head.
It's protecting his scalp from all the steam.
Exactly.
That steam was entering his brain.
Like if someone tries to like break his head with one of those plates or something, the plate will break. It's full on protected.
Because that's one of the things that happens a lot in, like, I've seen in movies where guys they take their lunch plate and they hit it over the guy's head. He'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, he's like, not gonna happen to me again.
I'm Mr. Manager,
right?
I got all the power.
One time too many.
Yeah.
When he leaves prison, the barber is just gonna take the hair off in one piece, and he's gonna
It's gonna be like a Lego hat.
yeah,
It just
exactly.
pops off his head.
He's gonna keep it on a shelf with a little plaque underneath, and it's like, yeah, that was Narkina 5. Remember?
How would you compare his hat to Luthen's art dealer wig?
Oh, I mean, Luthen's wig is pretty legit. It's a pretty good
Right?
wig. He has a good wig, man.
Yeah, he's upper class too, so it would probably be like, yeah, you're right about that.
Maybe
But
Circus
they
is
do
gonna.
have shavers.
Maybe Circus is gonna sell that hair. Maybe that's why he's keeping it perfectly carbonated or in carbonated.
Carbonated.
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
it is carbonated. Maybe that's why it's always like that.
It's gonna go for a good price, and then if like 4 movies from now, you see a droid walking by and he has Andy Serkis's hair.
Oh, he's got Andy Serkis's hair. Imagine K2SO with Andy Serkis's Lego hat on his head. Wow, look at that! Look at that salt and pepper K2SO.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would love for that to happen. Now I want this to happen. I don't want to see the serious show anymore.
Right? Maybe
Oh man,
maybe
that would be
Taika
amazing.
Waititi, he's doing a Star Wars movie. Maybe he'll give it to us.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe he'll have K2SO and another droid wearing Luthen's wig.
It's going
They
to
all
be
got it on auction.
it's going to be the dice from Solo, you know? It's like you don't think it
Oh,
matters right
yeah.
now, but later on you're like, "Oh, it's the hair." Of course.
It reminds me of how Marilyn Manson bought Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka wig for like a bunch of $1 million.
There you go.
Because Johnny Depp said his biggest influence for Willy Wonka was Marilyn Manson. So Marilyn Manson and Johnny Depp like get like music together and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe a droid who's like an avid fan of maybe a guard that becomes a rebel or something like that. He's been watching Andy Serkis. He's like, man, I hate you, but damn, you got a nice head of hair, dude.
Yeah.
I want that.
It's his paycheck. That's
What do
how
you use, man? What kind of products you use?
once he gets out of prison, that's how he buys a house.
He sells his hair. Maybe I should do that. You should do that, dude, with your dreads. If our YouTube channel doesn't pop off, we're gonna start selling our hair, guys.
Yeah, I guess so. We have no choice.
We have no choice, exactly. But yeah, that was one of my biggest complaints, that they get cleaned and everything, and they have shavers, but he's the only one who gets. Maybe as a floor manager, he gets access to the good products, but we never see him do anything. But yeah, so now they're back to the assembly line. You see our boy Cass, like he's sort of he's becoming a part of the team, and he's working hand in hand, in step with everyone. And you see him, and we see our boy Blue of the team, right? Olaf. And he's like, oh my god, I got the thing, and I'm like, oh no, poor old man.
Right? Like, what's happening there? He's just suddenly so confused. We had also,
like, oh no, and I was like, oh.
We also had the little moment where Mulchi got Cass's back, right? Where he's like, new guy. Oh no, actually that was before. Sorry, where he's got called new guy. But you get shots of Mulchi giving him the look, and they're like, we'll work together.
Yeah. Melshi, yeah. And so Andy Serkis comes back and reprimands Keith, and he's like, dude, you're on a roll, you could be number 1. It'd be a shame to waste it. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, god damn, Andy Serkis, you're pretty good at this acting thing, you know? Right?
Again, I love that it's such a he's being the dick leader, but at the same time there's always like a little bit of like, I just want to win, guys. We're like, if you like pull through, you guys could be number 1 today, and we're already in the lead. Like, if you don't drop, I might win today. I love it.
He reminds me of like an old school like American football coach. And yeah. So now we come back to Morlana, which is Imperial occupied, and we come back to Bix is sort of helping Marva. Marva is not doing so well, and our first look at Cassian's construction worker friend. He's back now, and I found out his name finally. You know what his name is? Brazzo.
Brazzo.
Brazzo. He's this big hunk Italian guy in Morlana, and his name is Brazzo, Brasso. And I was like, hey, that's my boy.
Brazzo. I'm very curious.
Brazzo, and he's Luca. What was the Godfather's guy? I forgot his name. The muscle, Luca something.
I don't remember.
Damn, I forgot his name.
Well,
So,
I'm wondering what their plan is for Bolana. They keep going back there and, like reminding us these people. I don't know. It's obviously in this episode, it's because of Biggs and Cass, but, like we had that other cutback where we saw the Imperials setting up the office where they're now going to interrogate everybody. Well, like, I guess that was that just set up so that they can look for Bix this time, or do they have bigger plans for Molana? I'm curious to see where they go with that.
Well, I think it was because firstly they were looking for the Star Path unit, and then because of what Cyril ended up doing.
I totally get why we're here. I'm just saying, as the show,
okay.
Why have they chosen to make us come back here all the time? Because whatever else is happening with Luthen makes me care less and less about the people in Molana.
Because that's the heart of the show. As I mentioned in the previous episode, that's the only place where we've actually felt emotions, and it's because we're witnessing, we're following this through Cassian's eyes, and however he feels is how sort of we're supposed to feel. And Morlana is where his heart truly is, and the only people in the whole galaxy that he actually cares about. So I think that's the heart of the show. And we're going to keep coming back. And I think the climax is going to happen, obviously, in Morlana.
I hope so. That's what I mean. I'm curious to see what the future is for Morlana. I know what they've been doing so far. Just what's the end goal here?
Right. But yeah, so then we get Bix and Brazzo sort of just talking outside, like, hey, what is she doing? Why is she outside? And there's Bix is like, oh, cause she's a rebel, she's trying to fight the rebellion. She's trying to fight the Imperials, and we're like, oh, okay. And then Brazzo also mentions that she was a past president, and because he's trying to get her better accommodation with something called the daughters or something, and he's like, but she's a past president, and Bix is like, no, she's choosing to live here because she wants to. And this actually, now I just thought of it, where it goes into the personal prison where Marva's finally escaped that, and that's what she was telling Cass about in the previous episode, where I no longer feel scared, where I used to avoid the road, now I walk there proudly. And now she's like, no, I'm not gonna go hide, I'm gonna stand up whenever I can.
Totally.
And yeah. So Bix is like, all right, I'm gonna go. And then Bratz is like, hey, come on, what's going on? Well, why won't you just stay? And then we sort of we zoom out, and we see someone spying on them. And then we see, and well, it's Val. I wrote that down.
I like that it was right at the moment where I was thinking, why are we spending time with Brazzo and Biggs right now?
Brazzo
and then it's like,
Biggs.
oh, it's Val. But then I immediately thought, what the hell has she been doing for a month? The same as Dedra, and everybody else is looking for Cass. What the hell did they do for a month? Did they literally just sat there? Like, did it take them a month to get to the point where they are now? Because right now it seems like they're just doing like the first steps to find Cass, right? Like, did it literally, which, like, okay, maybe for Val, but even Val shouldn't have taken that long because Luthen knows exactly where she needs to go. It's like, I spoke to Bix, that's how I found him, so go talk to Bix. What the hell was she doing for a month? Same with Dedra. She was like sent on this mission, and only now she finds this report and calls in Cyril. Where again, I just again, the 1 month jump was very interesting.
Yeah, it did take Vel 5 months to plan shit out and still not know how troops have their hands guns facing. So
true.
Maybe they're just kind of slow, Maybe they're just always falling off schedule.
True.
Right. And and then we see, and I had the exact same idea. I was like, why the hell are we, after all this boring scenes where I feel like it could have been condensed. Why are we spending so much more time with Bix and Brazzo out of all the people talking about Marvel? Like, and then we see like Vel spying on them, and then we see her meet up with Cinta. So this inadvertently became one of the best scenes for me, where again it felt like, oh, this is the show I've been watching. No, not because of anything,
Okay.
just because of the way the scene played out and the way like the characters interacted with each other. Where I was like, okay, this has more energy to the way the scene is being delivered to us, and it had some really good character moments while Cinta and Vel are talking to each other, and I really and I love those parts where all the, like I said, all the dialogue is either progressing the plot or fleshing out the character, and that's what this scene and the last scene was more about, and it didn't feel meandering in here and there. And yeah, we get to know some cool stuff about Cinta sort of uh, mentions to her straight away, where she's like, "Hey, the rebellion comes from me first." And have you noticed the theme with Vel, that she's a little bit needy and she's a little more insecure in her relationships? Probably because she was maybe she was yeah, I don't want to go deeper into it, but yeah, because she's disappointed with Luthen not showing up. She's like she's telling Cinta like, "Hey, after everything we've been through, you want to stay here by yourself again?" And Cinta's like, "Dude, I told you from the beginning, the rebellion is first. We take what's rest." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And you wanted to say something, or should I?
No, you're right. You probably
yeah.
that's
Yeah. And then she also mentions like Vel's like, "Hey, what would your alias be?" And she's like, "Oh, maybe I'm just a rich girl running away from her family." And Vel's like, "Hey, that's that's cold even for you." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of what we did we assume that Vel's maybe, or no, we think that the Luthen's probably her dad, right?"
yeah.
But yeah, at least we get to know a little bit of Vel, where okay, so Cinta's family was murdered by stormtroopers, and Vel's probably like a rich girl who. Oh, and it could be maybe similarities. I just thought of that between Leda, who is Mothma's daughter.
Yeah.
And Leda could go the opposite way. She
like
could become an Imperial because of that neglect.
Yeah, like I said, it's Luthen and Mothra are both slowly losing themselves for the rebellion.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and then Cinta also says, "Hey, you love me because I'm a mirror. I show you what you need to see." And I was like, "Ooh." And that line was really good, but the way she said it, it sounded like you know those old school fortune tellers where they're like inside of a like those scamming and they're sitting in like shopping malls and they're like, "I'll show you what you need to see." And I was like, "Dude, this is supposed to be a nice little romantic moment between them. Why'd you have to say it like that?"
Will we see them kiss?
Yeah. No, we just see them.
No, will we?
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. We have to see a gay kiss after all this build up, especially since we've seen it in Rise of Skywalker.
That's why I'm asking, because it'd be interesting. Are they gonna put that stamp on the show? Where this is the first proper exploration of a gay couple in Star Wars. So
yes, yeah. And yeah, so they plan that Vel's gonna leave and Cinta's gonna stay in Morlana and rent out a hotel and spy a little more. And then we get to Bix, who finds her boy Salman. And this is another thing that I finally noticed. You're talking about names and noticing things. You know what's his nickname? So his name is Salman. Okay, with spelled exactly how it is spelled here on Earth. And what does Bix call him?
I don't know.
Pack. and I wrote down, why Star Wars? Why did you have to do that? Paak. They were one letter short of making it a racial slur. One alphabet short of making it an actual racial slur for someone named Salman. And I have Muslim friends, so I know this. Okay, and I was like, why? It's not even, maybe that's his last name, but even you could have picked any kind of last name. Why do you have to call him Pack?
So you already set a precedent for Tim with 2 M's, so you know you're just putting extra letters into words. You know what?
Exactly. I was like, what? Because she calls him Pack, and I was like, Pack, wasn't he Salman? And then later on, it's like when he's like talking to an officer, it says Salman. And I was like, wait, so is his last name? Because we've seen Dedra and Miro like in different ways. And her name is Dedra Miro. So is his name Salman Pak? Which would be fine, but it's just like it has a lot of connotations to where you could have picked any other name if you have to call him Salman.
True.
And that's Salman is the only name we've other than maybe Ham, where I think it's spelled exactly like how it's spelled on Earth, other than any other name that is shown in the show.
Fair.
Where it's a Earth human name and it's spelled exactly like that. So yeah, I don't know. There's some bold choices, Mr. Gilroy's, all of you. But yeah, so she comes to him and asks him, "Hey, can I please go check the communication? I really need to check it." And he's like, "Hey, it's actually been like not out of service, but no one's communicated in a long time." She's like, "No, please, I gotta go check it."
Oh, I forgot to mention there was just randomly because I like these type of little things. But in the crowd, when she sees Salman, there's a guy in this crazy blue outfit that looks like a space marine or something. Really dope. I love that it's the same as with at Mothra's party. You see all these random aliens and droids still everywhere, and I like that they just sprinkle it everywhere, and it's all practical and it all looks great every time I notice it. But sorry, I just wanted to mention it before it was really go on because the Space Marine really stuck out to me. I was like, that dude looks cool.
The aliens at Mothra's party were noticeable to me, where I was like, wow, that's really cool, and they blend in so perfectly where it doesn't stick out from the point like, oh, it's like, oh my god, what is that, a practical effect, is that a CGI?
Yeah,
like it stuck out just because it was an alien, but it was like, it was perfectly like, wow, it's I noticed that too. Their alien design and has been great, and their costumes, I guess, has been really, really well made, where it almost feels like a movie.
It totally
where you
does.
wouldn't expect this kind of this kind of costume design from like a TV show.
This episode, almost more than any other so far, felt like a movie to me, just from the look. True.
But and so she goes and she starts. She wants to communicate with Bix. Wants to communicate with Luthen, and we get to Luthen now in his art dealer shop. And Clea's listening, and Luthen's like, hey, maybe you can check with her. And Clea's like pissed at Luthen. She's like, hey, what's wrong with you? You're slipping. And he's like, no, man, I'm not slipping. I've been just hiding for too long and blah, 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 you know. You want to say something?
Just his assistant looked a lot like the lady from Blade Runner, which I didn't realize before. The one that comes back in 2040. No, what's the new one? In the new one.
2048?
Yeah, where like she comes back because of Battlefield. I always think of 42 now, but yeah, she, for some reason, again, I think it might have been just a choice to like make her like just to show the references that they're giving nods to Blade Runner, because she had like similar hair and a similar look.
Right.
And I think it is interesting as it's also Clea. Then when Luthen says it, it sounds a lot like Leia.
Lane?
No, that isn't.
Oh, he says like Clea.
Her name is Clea with a K and then Y.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but yeah, the way he pronounces.
Right. Yeah.
So the way he pronounces it is always sounds like Leia.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice that at all. That's actually kind of cool. That's true. Yeah. And she has hair like like Leia in one of the things where it's not exactly like that, but she has those buns which she changes to when she goes to meet Vel.
Yeah.
When she's got her hood on and everything. Yeah, that's true. That's kind of cool. But and so this was again a very cool scene, because we see like Luthen is questioning himself, and he's like, why did I take on Andor? And that was a stupid choice. And again, like he's like, just him out there knowing me, thinking about me, asking about me, and Clea's like reassuring him like, no, you needed him, and if that wouldn't have happened, Aldhani wouldn't have happened, which kind of led me to think again, and I thought of this earlier and I didn't want to bring it up, but the fact that they question himself, what exactly was the specific skill set that Andor has that Luthen required, because they actually needed a pilot, right?
Yeah, it was really just him
And
flying
Cass,
that freight plane. That's all they needed him for.
In the entire galaxy, couldn't Luthen just find another pilot and not a thief?
It totally is still
who
one of the
kind of
mysteries.
knew how to pilot?
It's the mystery
Right.
is who's Luthen really, and why did he go after Cass? How did we don't know either of those things like fully.
Yeah, that was my thing where I was like, Cass literally, it's not even his unique skill set was like very like important to the mission, where it's like, oh, by the way, I can also pilot, and I could maybe pilot a Rono.
Yeah, I think it's very
they
deliberate.
weren't even sure that he could.
It's very. I think it's very deliberately set there because it's a big mystery of why Cass out of all these people,
right,
in the entire galaxy,
and the fact that he knew about Cassian's father and all that stuff, and true. So Clea's like, hey, we can't do this. You have to just shut it down. And Luthen's first saying like, no, it's not that I'm slipping. And then he says, okay, shut it down. And they shut the communication down to Morlana. And you see Bix just completely like pissed off and like just like upset,
playing the keys.
She keeps trying to cut. Yeah.
She's got them fast fingers.
Fast fingers.
I'm playing a solo on those keys.
Damn, dude. She was going like, and I was like, damn, wow. Because she has to hold the ladder with one hand. I was like, wow, man, you're going pretty fast on that. Like,
how many times has she sent a message?
Or like it reminded me of back in our day when we didn't even have a redial button on the phone, and you would just
texting
keep
on a Nokia,
redialing the number. Tick, 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 tick.
No, bro,
yeah, that's texting that. I'm going even further back.
Wait.
On like the old school landline phones when they didn't even have redial, so you just had to keep dialing the whole number over and over again, and when someone didn't want to talk to you, they would keep hanging up on you, and you would keep redialing it.
I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask.
What the hell, dude?
I'm gonna leave that.
This has nothing to do with the next girlfriend, okay?
Okay, I hope so. Like, who's hanging up on you? Why you keep calling him? Like, obviously hanging up on you. They didn't want to talk to you.
Because I knew she was hanging out with Tay, okay? I knew it, so and she told me she wasn't. No. I kept calling her and I was like, I can hear Tay in the background. I know you're there. You're not at home. You're not talking to your girlfriend. And she's like, stop calling me, okay? I'm not hanging out with Tay. I was like, I know you're not.
Start calling Tay. I know you were there.
I know you're there. It's like Tay just keeps hanging. I was like, you both keep hanging up on me. I know what's going on. I've redialed this number so many times. I can play a symphony on my phone. So we get back to so Bix is like pissed, and we sort of zoom out of that thing that she's in, the silo kind of looking thing, and we see Vel flying away in that bus that Luthen came to Morlana in. Were you expecting Willie to show up?
No, but she was sitting in the exact same seat as Luthen, foreshadowing that she's probably his daughter.
Yes, exactly. And Luthen, but she was sitting on the aisle, I think, not at the window.
It seemed like the same seat. It seemed like the same seat.
Right.
She was looking out the window.
Yeah, it's the same seat. Sorry. Yeah. In the same way that, and she's a little more like sad, where Luthen had like a little like he was on, he was focused on a mission because he was arriving to.
The angle, the shot, and the seat, all of it was exactly like Luthen. I think very deliberately.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and the ironic part is like because she was sitting in that same exact seat, I was thinking that maybe Willie might show up again. And then I was like, oh, it's written by some guy named Willie. And I was like, what the hell? Did they just do this on purpose?
Willie was there all along.
You see her looking out the window. Willie was there all along. He was the one writing the show. That's why he showed up to Luthen. We're breaking the fourth wall. We see her looking out the window, and then we see Cinta looking out her window, where they're sort of longing for each other, and they're kind of missing each other, but they're still on a mission. And or the other thing was that Vel is looking out the window, looking sad because she's longing to be with Cinta, and Cinta's looking out the window because she's focused on her mission, spying on Brazzo's house.
Brazzo.
The contrast in it. Brazzo. I keep calling him. That name is stuck in my head now. The Godfather's muscle. It was like, and this when Al
Put it
Pacino
in
was
the
trying to
comments.
explain to Kay.
Just leave a
Yeah,
comment.
put in the comments, guys. His name is Luca Brazzo. I think that's his name.
I mean, like I said, you can come back and leave it yourself in the comments. Let everybody know.
Yes.
When you find out.
Please leave it in the comments.
Well, you yourself can go leave it in the comments for the people.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's Luca Brazzi. But yeah. Anyways. So we see Luthen back in a ship, and he's going to some place called let me look this up because I want to say it correctly.
Segramilo. Again, new planet.
Segramilo. New planet. And he says, take the long route. And you see him sort of get out of his gown. So you know that he's going to get into a different kind of attire and a different kind of persona. Right?
Yeah. He's getting back into his rebel mode.
He's going to take his wig off.
Literally.
It'd be amazing if, like, at the end of this, if at the end of the show we see his wig, and then next to it there's like a coiffed wig. That's like that's the manager wig. That exactly.
It's like just Andy Serkis's wig just sitting there next to his.
He bought it.
Yeah.
He was the one who bought it. And so we then get to a shot which is a very kind of depressing shot of some guy committing suicide by stepping onto the hot lava floor.
Again, first in Star Wars. The first suicide in Star Wars, I assume.
Oh, really? Is that the first?
I'm pretty sure. Who else could, like, literally just kills himself? Pretty dark.
Yeah.
Again.
But it was, very, very dark.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about that was that the comments, it was so realistic where some of the prisoners like, oh my God, he's going to be smelling all night. Yeah. Like, oh, geez. Like,
but at the same time, I got really hung up on the part that he jumps on, they turn off the floors, turn on the lights. Everybody's like, shit, he's dead. Then they're like, okay, we're turning the floors back on. Lights go off. Red light goes on. Body is still on the floor. Why isn't he getting electrocuted? Even if he's dead, I feel like his body would be twitching or something from how much electricity they're shooting into the bodies. But he's just lying there lifeless.
Oh, like, you think he would, like, come back to life?
Not come back to life. Hey, maybe. You can, like, shock him back to life.
Like, what? You don't get to sue. You don't get to commit. You don't even get to escape the prison in that manner, dude. You don't even get to commit suicide. We're going to bring you back to life.
Bro, that would have been hilarious. Sad and hilarious, but still.
Imagine if that happened. Like, he just pops back up.
You're just saying, like, it was so realistic with them talking about his smell and shit. But at the same time, I was like, but you didn't explain how his body can just be on the electrified floor. Anyways.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to have the shot of, like, the dark shot of, like, his just body on the floor. And, like, they zoom out and cast just in his They didn't really think of the actual physics about it. It's like, you would just start flopping like a fish, and it's like, hey, whoa, he's alive, someone catch him, while he's in the air. When he's flopping, someone try to catch him. Oh my God, I don't like that we're joking about this one. We started off, it's like, oh my God, it's gonna be this dark scene. Now I'm just picturing him, like, flopping up and down,
doing
and
the
people
worm.
just, like, trying to get, like, one of doing the worm, and he actually ends up next to Cass. Cass is like, oh my God, he's right. What the hell? And people have, like, that giant cartoonish net that they try to capture, like, okay,
get back here.
Put it under him. Put it under him and he flops. Oh Lord. But yeah, that's not how it ends, guys. It just ends, like, with him just there, and it's a pretty depressing scene. It's not as comical as we wished it was. Oh man. Now I want all these scenes that we've talked about. I want this to happen in the show.
We have to do an animated version of this.
Yeah, exactly. So someone has to show this flopping up and down. It's like in Pulp Fiction, they give him, and they have that for what's his name? I was gonna call him Mice.
Mimic.
Namek.
Namek. Namak.
Namek, yeah. Namak. They throw some salt on those wounds. If you understand Hindi, listeners. All right. So now we're back to Marlana, and we hear the wood clanking back.
Didn't notice that. Cool.
And oh, really? You didn't notice that? That's what gets Bix to be like, hey, what's happening? All the wood clanking is happening.
Oh, she's right.
That means
Yeah. I got so caught up on the just her going there, because she goes up and she's like, "Why is there a crowd?" And they're like pulling the dude, and they're like, "Where's my father?" And I the whole time I'm thinking, if it was Bix, I would not be standing there. They're taking people away without answering questions or asking questions. And just people are disappearing, and you're like a shady motherfucker, and you're just standing there in the crowd like,
hey, what's going on, guys?
What's happening over here, guys? It looks kind of bad. Yeah. What? And then, of course, the first thing they do is like, we're looking for Bix, and she's like, oh,
oh, me. And even Brazzo's like, and she still doesn't leave actually, because no, actually she finds out. First they find out. So when she comes to the crowd, she meets Brazzo, and Brazzo's like, so they see. So that's Salman's kid. Remember, we saw that kid informing Salman that this is happening. So that's Salman's kid, and he's like, "You've taken my father." And Brazzo's like, "Hey, they took Pac. They took Pac, and he never returned back from the hotel." And I was like, "Oh no, stop it, Star Wars!" I see where you're going with this, with all these names and everything. And so you see Bix going like, "Oh shit, it's because of me." Like she didn't say that, but you see that on her face. And Brazzo's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Bix, get out of there. You can contemplate all these things on your way back to your apartment or whatever, you don't hang around. Like you've heard of serial killers going back to the scene of the crime and then just like for the thrill of it. It's like, Bix, you're not that. You need to get out of there. What the hell are you doing?
Like this is not a fight or flight moment. This is a flight. You go. You're basically a spy.
Well, she became a deer in headlights, I guess.
She's
not as good as Cass. Cass's reflexes would have been like, oh shit, I gotta get the hell out of here.
It's just like she seems like she's been doing this type of stuff for a minute. She should be smart enough to be like, look, last time there was something like this was happening, my boyfriend died. Why would I go back there? And then Brazzo is going to be the next one to get shot if it's not me.
Which is funny because so this is the second time she's affected someone close to her who got involved with her and got murdered by the Imperials. And even when Tim died, she was like trying to get to his body, and Salman was the one who pulled her away, saying like, no, we gotta get out of here. So maybe that's her character, where she's not like Cass, where she can't think practically in an emotional distraught moment like that, where she actually is emotionally distraught, where she doesn't think rationally or practically, where she's like, oh shit, I gotta get out of here. I'm more like, oh my god, what have like. So I think this is a good, if this is what they're doing, this is a good contrast between her and Cassian, which is what we always said is like, I've never seen guilt or regret on his face ever, despite all the crazy shit he's done. I've never once seen him feel guilty or even regretful for anything he's done. He's hurt so many people who are close to him, and we see the contrast with him, someone who's in a similar environment as him. And she is now both times, whenever she's affected a person negatively or caused their demise in a sense, she's been so distraught where the only thing she thinks of is like, no, I gotta get to that person rather than her own safety. And she's had to be pulled away both times.
No, this was true. It's a good contrast.
Yeah, that's actually, I just thought of that. I'm very smart.
Yeah. Look at you.
Yeah, Bix is not as smart as me.
Guess not. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been caught.
I guess not. Exactly. And again, so going back to that, where the prefect, out of all the crowd, he just goes, Colleen, hey, that's you. And I was like, wait, what? He just pointed her out in this giant crowd with all the wood clanking going and the dude shouting.
He had a picture because he was playing it off of being like, you totally look like a Bix. But I think he was just joking around, where it's like, for real? I just got the contract. I walk out of this building. I'm like, anybody know Bix? And he looks over and is like, wait a minute. You're right here. But they couldn't do that for Andor. That was my point. They can do it for Bix. But Cass is just sitting there.
Maybe because she's a girl.
I mean, you take it there.
You take it, man. No, my bad. I was just mentioning that. Sorry. But yeah. Yeah. So the prefect that was established earlier, and she's not even like right in front of the crowd. There's like a whole crowd, and then she's like behind that crowd. So the prefect saw her through this one crowd, and she's like way in the back, and he goes, "Bix Colleen, that's you. After her." And Brazzo just like sort of tells her like, "Hey, like get to this place," and he kind of acts like a diversion in between them, and then an Imperial screams like, "Get her!" And I was like, "Oh
That
my
was very
goodness!" Did
intense.
you notice that scream?
Yeah,
Yeah,
very,
that was
very
very
intense.
intense. Get her! And I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, dude, what did she do? Like Cassian murdered two fucking corporals. She just like, but yeah, I guess she's more important to the Imperial's mission. So yeah. And Big starts to run away, and now we get to the best scene where I guess you want to just take over.
No, but it was also last thing about that with the scream. I guess this time it wasn't the corporals. Was it? Actually, it was the corporals. Or was it Imperials?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the ones in the middle.
Right. It was one step over the blues.
Yes,
So
and one
maybe
step below the whites.
Yeah. So maybe they were trying to show that basically. But yeah, now we get to Sergo Milo.
Segramilo.
Segramilo. Where
Segramilo.
the first thing that you see is Erdic Two Tubes. I don't know if you remember him. Two Tubes? No, he was also in Rogue One. He's part of Saw Gerrera's team. And we saw, I think, someone who was related to him earlier in the season, where like it was a guy who looked like Two Tubes, but it wasn't him. And like now and also the guy who plays Two Tubes played someone else already in the show before. But yeah,
Okay.
we saw him in the trailer, and yeah, we finally see our man standing there looking dope with the rifle, looking over, and in the back you see a black and gray X-wing looking ready for action and everything. Dope setup. Like immediately when you see him, you're like, oh, is this what we're doing?
And I didn't know his name was Two Tubes. I called him Star Wars Immortan Joe.
Like, yeah, basically. But I think his name is Erdic, but everybody knows him as Two Tubes.
Two Tubes. Two Chain Star Wars cousin.
What? But yeah.
What?
And we get to see our man, Forrest Whitaker. Saw Gerrera is back. Back than ever. The rebellion. Got to save the rebellion. Which was what was interesting. Save the what was it? Save the rebellion. Save the dream.
Save yourself or something like that.
Save
That's
the
trailer,
trees.
right?
But
save the trees.
the big thing that is a big indicator of what might happen in the show, which would be amazing, is Saw Gerrera. We see him. Not only is he not bald, he has the hair from the beginning of Rogue One. He doesn't have the breather or the robot leg. He's very much nimbly bimbly on two legs. So maybe they're setting up that we will see over the course of these 3 seasons how Saw actually got the breathing apparatus and the leg. Which is great. I hope he comes back because, again, it felt like it was like a day of work. It was one dialogue, but it was so good.
I wanted to just quickly mention about his breathing thing where you think it would be like similar to like that guy General Grievous because he also has a breathing thing, right?
Yeah, we don't know. Is it a disease? Is it from a wound? What is it? You know, because I think Grievous specifically had a problem. That was
okay.
Well, I don't remember. Like, I mean, the main thing about Grievous is that like there was very little man left, and he was mainly droid by that point. But he still had the space cough, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I heard that it was explained in the Clone Wars or something.
Yeah,
like
that's what
animated Clone Wars. Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool to see Luthen speak to Saw Gerrera, see 2 different rebel, not like kind of leaders of their own factions, but it also what Saw is talking about them when Luthen is trying. Basically, we find out that Luthen has been funding Saw Gerrera's like mission by getting the stuff that he's stealing. He is selling to probably Saw and other people like Saw Gerrera. And yeah, this time he's saying he's come with a new device, but to give it to him, he wants Saw Gerrera to meet another one, which we assume. What was his name? I had mentioned it. Anto Krieger. Anto Krieger
Kriegs.
or
Yeah.
Creeks. Yeah. It seems
No,
like
Krieger. I think Krieger. You're right.
yeah, with a GYR, Krieger.
Yeah.
And yeah, it seems like he's being set up as another big figure that is probably on the level like Luthen, and Saw has its own little faction. But this is where Saw Gerrera then suddenly flips, where it seems like he really wants the part. I also like the thing that they're playing each other, and they're both acting like they don't know who did the heist, but it's kind of showing that it goes back to
That was my favorite part.
the rebels are so deep in it, they can't trust anybody, like not even each other, where it goes back to Luthen trying to get Andor killed, because yeah, they're hiding secrets from everyone is kind of on their own mission, their own rebellion, which then yeah goes to the whole thing of an alliance later. And the four things he mentions are separatists, which probably a holdover from the Clone Wars, the neo-republicans, which are people who want to restore the old republic. The Gormans are back. He calls it the Gorman Front, which we still don't know what it is, but Mon Mothma has been mentioning mentioning them like twice, maybe 3 times already. So they seem to be a pretty big threat that's going to come up at a certain point. Maybe that's where Anto Krieger comes in or something like that. I don't know. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's the Partesian Alliance, which so far only Cassian has mentioned it. We don't really know what it is, but because it's Partesian, it seems like they're the people who are separatists, like not separatists, but like they're trying to they're a bit more segregational,
Right.
But yeah, it seems like all these groups, movements, ideologies, they're all seemingly separate, and they only communicate through people like Saw and Luthen, And like I was mentioning earlier, I think that's the setup of showing why is there not a rebellion right now? Like where are we right now in the fight? And I guess for me personally, I saw it as the setup for the Rebel Alliance. Right now, it's a rebellion, but it's becoming the alliance, where all these separate groups will have to come together and put their ideologies apart. Where it also kind of it sets up this whole thing where Saw Gerrera and Rogue One, the whole idea was the rebellion they made it seem like Saw Gerrera was so off the beaten path that like they're calling him crazy, a lunatic with like methods that we can't support. And that's why they are separate from Saw, and they have like cut ties with him. But in this, it also kind of shows that maybe Saw just doesn't have the same beliefs, that like the rebellion, there's still certain ideologies in there, and they just don't align with Saw. And he's like, he knows this is a possibility where everybody can still fight the same fight, But yeah. I mean, there's also the last thing I mentioned, like Luthen says empathetically, like, we need to pull together, Saw, whatever our final vision of success looks like. There's no chance any of us can make it in real on our own, and like Luthen is right, which is again, it's showing everybody, like all these factions have to be rolled together into the alliance to get anything done. But in this timeline of Andor, they're just not there yet, not even close, which is really cool to see. But yeah, that was my notes for this scene.
Yeah, man. This was like, this felt like the Darth Vader scene at the end of Rogue One, where I was like, "Hey, whoa, look at that! That's it's so much energy, and it's so like, I was like, wow, okay, this is what I wanted to see." And yeah, man, just some of the things that they're talking about. Luthen's like, "Hey, we gotta put away our petty differences," and just the way they're playing off of each other. It is so great. Just, I don't know, man. Just something, the dialogue, the banter, and the fact that you're talking about such important things, and it's so like specific to the plot and so important to the plot, where it checks like all the things that you need from a scene. and that's what made me just like, wow, man, it was amazing just seeing these two guys just go at it, coming from two similar ideas but having completely different ways to go about it. Like you said, Luthen's like, no, I'm just a coward, and like, I'm just scared that the Empire will take over the galaxy and it'll be like too late for us to do anything. And then he mentions two things. He mentions very, very, that I just wanted to, the two lines. He says, oppression breeds rebellion. And then he also mentions to Forrest Whitaker, and he says, anarchy is a seductive concept. And I was like, wow, man, like,
Lies.
great writing,
Lies. Lies.
Oh man, yeah.
Separatist.
And also Forrest, separatist. And when he was going on that rant about all the names he was mentioning, I was like, stop, dude, you're giving me like I was like, I don't think I'll be able to speak after this.
Right?
I was like, I don't know how you're able to do that as an, I mean, we've mentioned this in an extra about Christian Bale doing a Batman voice. Like, dude, Forrest Whitaker doing this voice is so, like, it has the opposite effect of, like, he does a crazy voice, but it works so well. And it's like, wow, man, how are you able to do that? And like, without having like a sore throat.
My thought was, do I remember what Forrest Whitaker sounds like when he doesn't do the voice? Does he always sound like that?
No, I don't anymore.
Because I was thinking
I think
of
that's just what he sounds like.
I was thinking of the Last King of Scotland. And I feel like even he has a kind of like a raspy thing when he's doing his speeches and shit. So I was like, has he just always sounded like that? I don't know. I was like, wait, okay. Anyways, my throat was getting really scratchy listening to him.
I needed a couple of ginger drops after watching that scene.
Lies.
Maybe his voice in Last King of Scotland was like the beginning, and then it's like 20 years later, this is what his voice sounds like. And yeah, man, it was great. And also one thing Forrest mentions, I'm just calling him Forrest. I don't know what his actual
Saul Guerrero. Saul, like the Saul.
Saul Guerrero.
Yeah.
Oh, like Saul Goodman.
No, like Saul, like the Saul.
Oh, Saw. Oh, yeah. I wrote that they called him Saw. I thought maybe that was like an alias or something.
No.
Like
he's been around. Like, he's not just in Rogue One. He's all over the like Clone Wars and like Rebels, whichever one of those shows. There's like they show him from being like a young like fighter, like in his 20s and stuff, and like he's all thin and shit. And, like, this is the end of his career.
I want to see de-aged Forrest Whitaker be like all like young and handsome. with like a really good voice, He has to computerize his voice to make him sound normal. Because his voice would be the most recognizable. Like how Cyril says I could recognize Luthen by his voice. Forrest Whitaker would be the most recognizable person. It's like, hey, can you say this sentence for me? Oh, no, the rebellion. I was like, okay, that's our guy. We found him. Can everyone just say this one word, please? Rebellion. It's like, oh, that's our guy.
Rebellion.
He's trying to be like, rebellion. He's trying to have some gravitas. He can't do it anymore.
It's all lies.
And the one thing he mentions is that he claims that he's the only one with a clarity of purpose. And that's something we talked about in previous episodes about Cyril and Cass and having purpose in their lives. And Cyril also finds purpose in this episode, finally, something he's been pining for all throughout the show.
Clarity and purpose, not in voice. Shit.
or in sight.
Ouch.
Ouch. Ouch.
It's just a lazy.
Tries not to body shame.
It's just a lazy eye. I don't think it affects your sight.
No, it's not. Dude, his I don't think it's just a lazy eye.
Forrest Whitaker has a lazy eye. That's
but usually when people have a lazy eye, their both eyes are still pretty much symmetrical. His one eye is just like I almost thought for a second
Forrest Whitaker?
No, I know that he looks like that, but I'm saying like normally that's not what a lazy eye always looks like.
That is
like
exactly.
Forrest Whitaker has a lazy eye and something on top of that, where his eye, like his physical appearance of the eye is also really small.
Then what is the lazy eye? The lazy eye is a drooping eye.
No, I thought lazy eye is just where like your pupil is lazy.
No.
Like not lazy. Like,
no.
That's a lazy pupil.
That is a different name. But the girl from
Cross-eyed?
the
I mean,
the
I think that's a mean way to say
the
it.
girl from The Good Place has it. Christian Bell. She mentioned it. What you're talking about, which is also, yeah, I think you can call it
Oh, right.
lazy eye as well, but like it's something else where like her eye just stops moving after some time, and she kind of has to like whack herself
Yeah.
to get it to go. But also lazy eye.
Because it's lazy.
as
I think that's where the term comes
No,
from.
the lazy comes from the drooping. It looks like it's not putting any more work.
I've never.
It's a lazy eye, bro. It's just slouching.
I've never seen it on anyone else other than Forrest Whitaker. That's my point. Like I've never
bro,
seen it.
I've seen
anywhere else.
many. Like there's another. I know from Germany, for example. There's a famous comedian called Karl Dahl, and he has the craziest lazy eye ever. And we always call it a lazy eye.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that was my problem. I think I've seen way more Christian Bell like lazy eyes, especially in real life as well. So I'm like, so for me, that was like, I thought Forrest Whitaker has a lazy eye, and his eye is also just like the physical appearance is like, well, we shouldn't be making fun of it. But
I'm not making fun of it. You are.
No, you are. No, you are. And you know what's funny is that the moment I noticed his eye, because I haven't seen Forrest Whitaker in so long, right? So when I was, he's doing the voice, and I saw his eye, and for a second I was like, man, look at him. He's able to do his facial expressions so well, where he's able to get into character. And then I remembered that that's how he actually
Look at him.
looks.
Look at him.
And
He
I
can
thought
act
of the
the
term
lazy eye. How does he
Yeah.
act the lazy eye?
and then the term lazy eye came to my mind, and it immediately took me back to the Eye of Aldani, where I was like, imagine if it was the lazy eye of Aldani, where the meteor showers just start dropping in the middle of the thing.
See, now you're making fun of it.
No, I'm making fun of the meteor shower.
Okay. Anyways, but yeah, that's the
but
scene
yeah.
between
Anyways.
Luthen and Saw, the best
Yes.
moment of the episode. I totally agree. Big.
Yes. And Forrest declines the sale from Luthen and to meet with Anto Krieger. And yeah, and then we get back to Morlana, and Bix is caught. Dedra's like Dedra has Pac in the torture or the interrogation chair, and the prefect's like, should I get him out of here? And Dedra's like, no, I want her to see him. That's the little aspect where I was like, oh man, like, I mean, that's obviously a pretty good interrogation tactic.
Amazing.
But at the same time, it's like, does she enjoy that, or is she really good at her work? And
then I love the little thing where then Bix comes in and she's like, "What are you doing? Get him out of here!"
yeah,
Plays it off
where
perfectly.
she's like, yeah, exactly, yes, exactly, and yeah, and then she does this to Mira, where she shows her the chair and she just smiles and she just points at it. Where I was like, oh, dude, Dedra's like pretty scary now. She's not maybe just doing her job. Maybe
what stuck out to me is that scene was very saddened. It was very droopy.
Yes,
A lot of people had sat in that chair.
Oh.
Well, where were you going to go with it? What did they do with the chair in your head canon?
No, I didn't even think of the chair. I thought you were saying the scene was very sad. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know. I was like, it was a very sad scene, dude. You're right.
I thought you were going to give me a breakdown of like the sloping chair
from
means,
the chair.
and because of that,
and
the
social commentary
sexuality
of the chair.
Deborah is in question. You know, maybe they're trying to hint at her libido being very saggy. I don't
Yes, exactly. That's exactly where I was going. You see, Root, you don't get it, you know? The English literature behind the chair. Have you? It took me back to that amazing song by Rebecca Black, "Which Seat Can I Take?"
Nice. Good pull.
I did it.
Leave it there. I don't need to add nothing to that.
I should be excused completely from my entire serial rant and just edit that out and just keep this in. I'm very ashamed of that. That it's worse than my Andor reflection. Oh man, those should be in the outtakes. The terrible outtakes we can't have. And yeah,
it's fine. It's it's the special thing for everybody who is willing to sit with us. You know, as if you sit here for long enough,
yes,
you get the gold. You know.
You get the gold exactly. Oh man, I'm sweating after that whole serial rant. I don't know what Twitter's gonna do to me. The moment I brought it up, I was like, oh no, I have to go through with this now.
Tweet at us at the Red Chill. Let us know what you think of Shabz's rant.
Or please just, I'm sorry guys, okay? I'm apologizing in advance. It was just like, I went too far. We've gone too far.
He's gone too far.
Too far. I've gone too far.
In a world.
In a world.
Where
In a
Twitter is
galaxy.
trying to cancel. Shabz plants his flag on the hill he doesn't want to.
He shoves plants his flag into Cyril. implies he's gay. Oh man. Okay, I'm just gonna get through this last scene, so I just stop talking, okay? Because I'm scared I'm gonna get myself into trouble the more I say words. The more words that come out of my mouth, I feel like I'm gonna get more into trouble.
I think we're at the end of the episode, anyways.
We're at the last scene. Dedra shows Bix the chair. Bix is like, "Oh my god." Dedra's like, "Yep, that's what's gonna happen to you, buddy." And then we get to the assembly line and we see our boy Cass just like on it, like boom, 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 and it's like. That's what shows like his, and I think this is the first time, I don't know, obviously he's scheming, but out of all the teams he's been in, this is the first time he's actually gotten acquainted into a team right away. True. He's always been trying to detach himself from the team, like you mentioned. But in this one, he starts off completely detached and now he's fully in it. We'll see what his motives are, obviously.
Well, it goes into the theme of like in this prison, there's no individuality. They're known as the tables, they're numbers.
Ooh,
they've taken the individuality out of Andor.
I like that. But yeah, man, that's it. Just sort of you see him just assembling the thing. They assemble it, and it just sort of ends. And directed by Toby Haynes, and written by Bo Willimon.
Willimon.
Yo, I said that correctly, actually.
So that's episode 8. Any final thoughts you have of the episode?
I noticed one small little thing where when the show ends, the transition music from the scene to credits, it was a little jarring.
Okay.
Normally all the episodes, the way they end, the music sort of transitions into the post credits, leaving you with that same emotion of the ending of the scene. But in this, it was like it was ramping up the music, like a lot of drums and percussion, and it still goes in that vibe. But there's like a small little jarring transition, like a quick thing where you're like, "Hey, what happened?" And it's like, "Oh, now we're in the post credits." Yeah, it almost seemed like post credit music was shot already, where it didn't do a fade in or whatever.
It reminded me of the end of episode 6, where it's also the music is swelling and you see Luthen excited and like just elated about what went down, and it just cuts to credits of like
no, that was like a perfectly done cut.
Well, it's a different energy where like it reminded me of the same thing of, you know, it leaves you with that, like you're saying, when it leads you in, it leaves you with that energy, but the abrupt cut leaves you in with a certain energy as well. Where like there it was a feeling of excitement, here it's more a feeling of dread.
Right. It wasn't like an abrupt cut. That's the thing about this, where it was like it was the same kind of music, but it just changed slightly. And it just, I think if you go back and listen to it, you might hear it, where it just seemed jarring. Where like the Luthen scene was like perfect the way it was cut, right?
Yeah.
The energy was like flowing and then it's cut. Here it was just like the music was going and then they carried on with a similar type of music, but just a little bit louder. And it wasn't like the progression and the transition from scene to credit wasn't there.
Okay.
Yeah. It just felt a little weird.
For me, it was a
very tiny thing.
It was feeling uneasy, where it's like, oh, fuck, he's stuck in this place.
And also like what's he gonna get up to after this, and the prison break moment. I think that's where it's gonna go as well.
But yeah, that's Narkina 5.
Yes, sir.
Any closing thoughts?
No, man. I think we covered it all. Too much actually.
And you stand with your rating?
Yes, I still do. Actually, I was thinking of that now that I've gone over the entire episode. I was thinking that maybe I might rate it a little higher. Hearing your thoughts on it, that I might go to 7.8 maybe from 7.5, but I'm still not able to give it an 8 because I think what I felt about the previous scenes and then having seen Luthen and Forrest Whitaker scene, I still have the exact same feelings about how it was paced and how it was structured.
Fair. Like I said, I'll stay with my 8.5. I told you why exactly at this point. Overall, think it was fun. Every scene that we went through, I usually don't have that many notes, but this time I really, really got a lot of out of each scene. I think it was. I like the setting. I would like a good prison break. I like seeing new locations, and it was set up well. Where I was saying, with the looks that Cass was giving, it could have been seen as him just being like flabbergasted, like worried, like out of his comfort zone. But for me, just because maybe I've seen too many heist movies or whatever, it really felt like, oh, we're just in here, and every little bit of information, I'm just sitting there, and I was like, well, how is he going to use this to break out? You know, like, how is it going to come into play? What in what order does he have to use this information to get his way out? Because no one else is going to come for him. No one knows he exists. The Empire doesn't know he's existing in this place. So how will anybody else find him? The only way out of there is with other prisoners. So it has to be a prison heist, a prison break. And
Prison break, yeah.
yeah. So for all of that, like I said, I got a lot out of it, and I thought everything was very smartly intercut, and all the information given was great. Every scene had like a little something for me to take out of it, and I think out of all the middle episodes, this was my favorite. Where
really?
Yeah, because episode 2, I didn't know where we're going. There was a lot of talking, and it was just in this junkyard planet, and I was just like, what's the point of this? Episode 5 was I felt the tension of 4 was so high, where then 5 was kind of like, okay, now we're just going. We weren't setting up the heist further. That heist was set up in the episode before. Now we were just spending time on the characters again, and the location was just this giant green Scotland fields, and and intercut with that sterile imperial place. Where this time in this episode, you got a completely brand new location, took us to a completely brand new planet. It didn't just use it as backdrop. It really played into like, what does this planet mean and how does it function? At the same time, it didn't do too much with the Imperials. It just give us a little bit with Cyril. They didn't do too much with Moth. It just gave us a little bit with Moth. Then we go over to Morlana, and in total we had 5 different planets. Well, by the end we meet Saw Gerrera, and in total, like, it was many locations, all well used, and yeah, overall, I just really, for a character building, this time world building, where it's building up location building, really,
and plot building.
Yeah, I think out of all, it was just the most interesting because of setting, and we again the
one thing I really sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying the themes and tones that I was getting out of it, where maybe for you it was on the nose, but for me it was more. This is giving me more backstory and understanding of the world, and I wasn't distracted like them mentioning the Navy or something like that and thinking about my world. I was thinking about Star Wars when they're mentioning all that stuff.
See, that's the stuff where it's funny, because that's the stuff that took me out of the whole Star Wars moment, where I was like, that stuff feels like way more it almost felt like prequel type politics, where it turned into like boring politics.
No,
but not like it wasn't like it wasn't as not as bad, but it was like, it was on that level of, in comparison to how it's been handled throughout the episodes so far, where I was like, and throughout the episodes they've mentioned politics and they've dealt with politics, but it's been in a more digestible manner for a Star Wars universe. And one thing I will mention that I really liked about this was, this is one of the first episodes, or maybe second, where now we finally see all those things that were set up in all the previous episodes finally get interconnected.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think there's going to be a big catalyst moment the next. I think it's very symbolical that he's breaking out of a prison, and like we mentioned, and yeah, I think overall, still amazing show. So glad we get it. I think part of why we're getting different things out of it is because, for example, I'm like not the like I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, but I'm not the type who's sitting here and reading every book and everything. I'm mainly there for all the live action stuff. But I've been pretty invested in all of that. So I've always had questions about the bigger
Right.
picture. So when I'm coming into the show and they're giving me all these answers, where some of it is things I've wondered and things that I was like, oh, I should have thought about that. But like now that you bring it up, that's amazing. So I'm getting that. That's why it's reminding me of Star Wars, where I think for you, you're coming in a little bit like you've watched the movies, but you haven't been as invested.
Right.
So when you're watching this, you're watching it as a, like, that's why it goes back to social commentary for you, because you're watching it as a normal show.
Yeah.
Where
Yes.
for me, it is social commentary, but it's social commentary for Star Wars, where you know, like, we're building this world. This is the most world building we've gotten in Star Wars in so long, and it's going so deep and so hard and planting so many flags that, like, at this point, it's really it's becoming, it's going, there's going to be like an Andor handbook where there's so many little things that they explain, but they make everything else just more fleshed out. And for that, I'm totally here for. I'm so curious to see where we're going. You know, like, for the first 8 episodes, first season, incredible so far. What they've been doing.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. Like, if like it's only 8 episodes and you go back to Mandalorian, the first season, that was 8 episodes, I think, the whole show.
Something like that.
And like you think of, and that was like a great show, but you compare, obviously that has a totally different like thing, a totally different vision that and structure that they had in mind. So it's not supposed to be like,
that's
this,
more like villain of the week type, like monster of the week situation, where
and just following this.
There's a small thread that connects them all, but every week he's on a different planet with different people. Where they toned that down in season 2. But yeah, here it's like we're just watching mini movies, and I love it.
But it's like, and it's like the plot has like gotten so much grander at this point, where you're just like, holy crap! Like I'm that's the stuff, like, even for me, like you said, I'm not a Star Wars fanboy in that sense, but I enjoy Star Wars, and I'm excited. I was very excited throughout for them, the way they built the Star Wars world for someone like me, because I always get confused with too many locations and the names and stuff, and I loved how they slowly took their time to introduce locations, introduce you characters, introduce you tech, all these kind of terminologies that I'm like, even for someone like me, like I mentioned a lot of times, I can suggest this to people who never watch Star Wars and who think of Star Wars as like maybe kiddie junk in a sense, like, right? But I could tell them like, yo, you could watch this, and it's not just a great show, it will actually get you into Star Wars, the way they've built up and the way they're not cynical about any, like, they're not like, oh, we're an adult show and we have to sort of keep the Star Wars aspect of it at bay. They're like fully putting their arms around Star Wars and saying, this is the world we live in and we love it, and we're going to just show you an adult themed show within this world, and we're going to show you Star Wars along with it. That's the stuff I love about this so far.
Yeah. Again, I cannot wait to see the next episode. Episode 9, third one is always the best out of the 3. So yeah, very exciting times. Good time for Star Wars. There's also Tales of the Jedi just dropped. I have not had chance to watch it yet, but on the list. Very excited to see what else we're going to learn this week. But yeah, I think let's call it here for this week. Episode 8, Narkina 5. We'll meet you everybody back next week. Right?
Yes, sir, for episode 9.
So Shabz, why don't you sign us up?
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Please like, subscribe, hit us up in the comments, in email, anywhere you want. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, YouTube now. You can find clips of us on YouTube, shorts that we just take out, and we also talk about random other things. You can find that on YouTube. We'll put some of that. We'll put trailer reactions. So look forward to that. Look forward to you guys subscribing. Give us rating, 5 stars if you can, if you like us. Let us know how we can improve, what kind of content you want to watch or hear. You want it longer, shorter, everything. Anything that comes to your mind, just let us know. And we're working on growing this and improving day by day, and looking forward to doing more things. And yeah, I think stay tuned and see you guys next time. Not even next week, because we might do other stuff in the middle. So stay tuned for that. We're gonna diversify a little more from not just Andor, but talking about more pop culture, DC, Marvel, that kind of stuff, trailer reaction. So watch out for those things and stay tuned for that.
And
Looking
last
forward to
thing
that.
is our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer reaction is now live on all podcast services. And by the time you hear this on YouTube, it should also be
Yes,
on
sir.
YouTube. And check that out. Let us know how we're doing. It was our first trailer reaction. Very curious to see how
First
what
trailer
everybody thinks.
reaction. Yeah.
We went frame by
Yeah.
frame.
Let us.
We might work on the format a little bit, but yeah, let us
Yes.
know.
Yeah. We're very, very excited to upload that and to hear what you guys have to say if you
Yeah.
guys are able to see it, and give us all the kind of feedback that you can.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a happy ending and take care.
Peace, everybody.